In the first two parts of the series, we started building a timeline. We looked at how Candace Owens first entered the public eye, the content that helped her gain traction, and the early moments that drew people in. And as we moved into the second installment, we started to see something else. That as her platform was growing, there was already people on the outside asking questions, watching the way her arguments were framed, the speed of her rise, and the patterns in her messaging. But as we moved further into that timeline, the tone begins to change. Because this is the point where the questions stop being subtle and start becoming specific. Moments begin to surface, comments, articles, old posts, and responses that don't just challenge the narrative but complicate it. Some of these moments were dismissed at the time, some were defeated, and it all became quietly buried as her platform continued to grow. In this episode, we're going to walk through that period, a stretch of time where controversies begin stacking on top of each other, where earlier parts of the story start coming back into focus, and where the timeline itself becomes harder to ignore. Because once you start putting these pieces together, the story doesn't just get clearer, it gets harder to explain. This is part 3. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope everyone's having a really good day. So, we're going to continue on with the Candace Owens series that we have going on here. And last time we were building up from what people were saying back then when she first kind of came on the scene. And we're going to do a little bit more of that today because there was a lot of stuff going on, right? But we're also going to still bump up off the House and Habit article, and we are going to look at some other things. So it's going to be quite an interesting show. I think after this episode, it will move forward into some new things, much more forward into the timeline, the story. But we're just seeing where it goes, right? Remember last episode, or it could have been the one before, because that was like one big episode in my mind. But we were talking about why Candace Owens is doing what she's doing, which she has done to many people, not just Erica Kirk. And eventually we will get to that. Just like the woman of the article we're reading, why would she do this to people? And why would she do this to Erica Kirk? And some people were suspecting it had to do with money and views and all that. She almost knows exactly what sells. You know what I mean? The controversy, how to build a story, because the story always has to have conflict. That conflict doesn't necessarily have to be bad. The person could be conflicting something within themselves, or there could be a war going on in the story, or a hero's journey, but there always has to be some type of conflict. And Candace Owens seems really good at narrative, and I think that that has made what she does so compelling to so many people, because she provides everything that you would want: the hooks, the conflict, the controversy. But that's what brings the clicks and the money, right? And I found a woman that broke it down really well, which I already know her. I like her channel, but you guys might have not seen it. But I really appreciate her work, and she brought up the money thing and she explained it in a really good way. So I figured we would start there. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so this is April Chapman. I will leave her channel linked below. She does great work. She makes wonderful videos, and she's a very good Christian woman. And so let's see what she has to say about the money thing.
It's been what, 3 weeks? And Candace has released video after video, not to mourn Charlie Kirk, not to highlight all of his wonderful accomplishments and the things that he has done. I've not seen her make a video to stand with his wife, his best friend, Erica Kirk, but instead to monetize grief. That's what I am seeing. Instead of supporting actual justice for Charlie, she's muddying the waters with all of these open-ended investigations, all of these cryptic sources that never resolve. It's a steady drip of half-truths. Some are outright lies, lots of innuendo, all of this insinuation, and all of it is designed to keep people on the hook and frankly on her payroll. At first, I was like, you know what? I don't like pocket watching. I make content. I don't want to say this what it is. However, I said the only way for my assertion to be remotely plausible, we got to look at the analytics, right? So I said, okay, let's do it. So I need to show you guys something. Okay, I've been doing just a little bit of research, a little homework, not a lot, but just enough to make you ask questions. Since everybody want to ask questions these days, I want to ask some questions, okay? So, I know I'm short, so just do your best to try to see this. I pulled some analytics, and if you can see here at the bottom, 2023, all the way up to like April of 2024, what do you notice? Right? What do you notice? Well, what you'll notice is that the views, this is monthly gain views for Candace Owens, right? Prior to March of 2024, Candace's views were flatlined, okay? They were flatlined. She was sadly becoming irrelevant. I don't take pride.
Okay, so that is extremely interesting. She was flatlined on views, according to the chart in April Chapman, which she would never lie. So that's extremely interesting. Hey guys, so it's that time where I need to ask you to subscribe to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, just hit the like, please. If you don't do this, I will be abducted by aliens. Thanks.
In saying that, like I said, I make content. I know this grind. It takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of commitment. And it takes, you just have it or you don't. You either got it or you don't, to keep people perpetually engaged and dialed in and tuned into what you have to say. So prior to March of 2024, her views were flatlined. Okay. I mean, I didn't make these numbers up. This is, I mean, if you have any number of these services that kind of keep you dialed in of what's going on, you would have been able to pull this up. And so she was sadly becoming irrelevant. And in comparison to the numbers that she used to pull in, nobody was really tuning in. And when I say no, I'm not saying nobody. What I'm saying is in comparison to the following that she had, nobody was really tuning in. In my opinion, Candace needed a shock event.
So you'll see that, like, a lot of times you'll see people have huge subscriber counts, but then they don't get as much views as they really should be based off the subscriber count, right? So I think that's what April is explaining there.
To stay relevant after losing her Daily Wire salary. This, you see this dip right here in April? I pulled a timeline of when, just give me 1 second to pull it up. Oh, Lord have mercy. I got too much going on.
Oh, I forgot to say welcome to anyone new. So I said welcome back to everyone, but I didn't say welcome everyone that's new. The channel's been growing. It's gotten quite a few subscribers lately, and so that's great. And so welcome everybody who is new, and welcome everybody who is coming back. And I really appreciate everybody so much that has subscribed.
Candace was at Daily Wire from late 2023 to early 2024. She was engaged in periodic controversy, but not a lot. No major independent content spikes. Okay. So that first, the graphic that's on the screen now, you didn't really see much traction. Then March of 2024, she's officially let go from the Daily Wire after repeated anti-Semitic remarks and conflicts with Ben Shapiro. Right there is when there was this sharp decline in views and subscriptions over the next month. So between April and May of 2024. Now, some insider baseball, whenever you see a dip like that, typically that means content is being scrubbed and removed and deleted, right? So, for example, you guys, I crossed over 100,000 subscribers months ago. Typically, when that happens, what are you supposed to get from the YouTube? You're supposed to get your silver play button, right? Do y'all see a silver play button here? No. The reason why I didn't get my silver play button is because in July of the previous year, I was promoting Vince Everett Ellison's film, Will You Go to Hell for Me? And in that trailer was imagery of a lynching. And I showed it on my platform and I got a strike for violating community guidelines. Do y'all remember when I was in YouTube jail for like a week? I couldn't post, I couldn't go live, I couldn't do nothing. Do y'all remember that? Well, what happened was I was so focused in wanting to promote that film that I figured I'm going to post this video anyway, but I'm going to edit it, right? I'm going to edit the video so that it's within the guidelines, but it's still the trailer. We edited the trailer, and when we got ready to upload it back to my channel, I did something stupid. I clicked the wrong file. I named the two files very similar, picked the wrong one, uploaded it to the channel, and YouTube gives me a strike. And they're like, you can't post, you can't, you in jail. You can't do nothing for a whole week. I was devastated. Then I'm thinking, okay, well, after some time, that'll fall off. Bygones will be bygones. I crossed over 100,000 subs. I'll be able to get my play plaque button thingy. Well, YouTube basically told me you ain't never getting a plaque. Why? It wasn't that I violated the community guidelines that one time and got the slap on the wrist. I did they have like this little training class that you can go through to be like, I'm sorry, I had learned my lesson. I don't know what I was thinking. Amen, right? I took that class. But because I violated the same community guideline within 90 days of getting my first slap on the wrist, they were like, yeah, your channel's just not eligible. And they've been stringing me along all year. I've been applying, it gets rejected. And I'm trying to ask, why am I rejected? And then one person told me, oh, well, you have a few videos that have limited monetization. Just delete all of those. So this is why I'm telling y'all this. Because when you see a dip like that, typically it's because you're trying to clean up your channel and get rid of all of the offensive content where it's been demonetized. So I started deleting some videos, stuff that I was like, I didn't really care about, that I really wanted to talk about, but it ain't really had that many views anyway. So I just deleted the videos. Well, here's what happened with Candace. She started trying to clean up her content and she deleted a lot of content. Now, if I'm wrong, I will retract this statement, but that is the only explanation as to why you can't get negative views. How do you unwatch somebody? You can't. Content was deleted. When you see that sharp dip like that, that means views get extracted from your tally of accumulated views over time, right? So we see that sharp decline. Then in March of 2024, right after she's let go from the Daily Wire, Candace gets on the Brigitte Macron bandwagon. Okay? She begins pushing Brigitte Macron, the transgender conspiracy, on her own channel. Within 2 to 3 weeks, look what happened. Look what happened. This is April. May, once she...
I'm going to make it big really quick so you guys can really see this chart, okay? See how this is what she's saying, like after a couple weeks of starting Brigitte Macron, see what happened here with the big spikes.
Gets on the Macron bandwagon, massive spike in views, massive spike, okay? Massive spike, massive engagements, which equates to massive monetization. So here's what I did. I was like, okay, well, it seems as if she was able to carve out an audience that likes conspiracy theories, and she would take them on this never-ending ride that was enjoyable. I mean, if you was on that ride, you were enjoying it because you were always looking forward to the next one.
Okay, so remember last episode when Blair White was on that live with some black dude? I'm pretty sure that was the name of his channel. Some black guy, something like that. Remember when Blair was on there and she said that Candace realized there was an audience with the Alex Jones crowd and she was getting pushed out by Paul Joseph Watson, and she went on the InfoWars several times, and then remember Blair White being like, oh, she knows she has an audience with that crowd now.
Why am I bringing this up? This matters because she's got a history at this point of taking the Macron chick allegedly being a man is not Candace's idea. That idea has been swirling around from a book that was previously published, and Candace just took it to a whole nother level. Okay. So in my opinion, she needed a shock event to stay relevant after losing her Daily Wire contract, and the Macron conspiracy was her financial reboot. Why? Because the timing of her renewed engagement coincides perfectly with her public firing and then her first Macron videos. Now, we can pull this down. With the Macron suing her and Charlie Kirk's death in the headlines, now she's doubling down because the formula works. Grief, fear, attention equals revenue. But the minute she discovered her Brigitte Macron conspiracy, her views shot back up. So do you see this? That's a flatlined audience. And then bam, she finds a niche audience of people who are obsessed with fringe conspiracies. And overnight, she's back on top. That is not a revival. That's opportunism. I ran the numbers. I get it. Listen, I told you, I make content. Every good content creator is going to look at their numbers and see what is it that people want to see. Well, then we should give them more of that. And when Candace was with the Daily Wire, her views were dropping faster than Kamala's poll numbers. But the minute she started attacking Brigitte Macron and spinning conspiracies, boom. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to see the motive here. This is not some sort of revelatory information. It's just revenue.
Okay, so remember also, I think it was, trying to remember, it was somebody that was in with the Daily Wire crowd, like somebody on that side, somebody in the know, or somebody, it was a person. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't just like a random person. But they said something about, remember when Candace started with the Daily Wire, she was behind a paywall and she had like a live audience like Oprah. And then I thought I heard somebody say that wasn't working out very well. Like she wasn't pulling the numbers to really, for the overhead of that show. And so that's why then they put her just on her own show. But I thought that was interesting too. Doesn't seem like she did that great at the Daily Wire. Maybe that would be something Jeremy Boring would know.
Her analytics tell the story. Have another one. This is monthly gained subscribers for Candace Owens. 2024 at the bottom, April. What happens in July on forward? This is monthly subscribers. I'm not making this up. I didn't even make this chart. Anybody can go and look for this information. The analytics tell the story. Flatline, controversy, explosion, lawsuit, and now we got a new cash cow, Charlie Kirk's death. When the money gets tight, the content gets crazy. This is not journalism. This is opportunism dressed up as discernment, and it leads nowhere. Nowhere.
Also, if you guys remember when I showed you that chart on either the first or second episode, I showed you the chart or it wasn't a chart, it was a big list that Rob Schneider put out on his X. And it showed that her Charlie Kirk memorial show, like the day after he died or whatever that she did, where she showed all their stuff, that got $54,000 in super chats, and God only knows how much ad revenue. She was probably like, whoa. Because before that, she was making like 8, 7, 9, 12. Remember? Yep.
I'm not done. I'm showing a max view of gained video views from another source. They're all reporting the same thing. April 2024, flatline. Are we paying attention? And I mean, now that she's run her mouth, the Macrons have sued this woman, and as of late, the Macrons have amended their lawsuit just a couple of days ago. You guys, legal defense is expensive. And I'm not saying Candace is broke. Candace has plenty of money, but we have no idea how much it is going to cost for her to defend herself vigorously. And if she loses, she will need liquidity. She will need cash. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And I believe what she is doing is monetizing as much as she can. And Charlie Kirk's death is no exception. More videos, more conspiracies, more cliffhangers, more memberships, super chats, merch. Listen, I get it. I do this. This is all I do for a living. So I understand it. But these are her analytics. What do you notice? The views were tanking. She was flatlining. And then suddenly, boom, Brigitte Macron investigation, and the views shot back up. And there is a niche for these fringe conspiracies. And I believe she's cashing in. Let me be clear. I don't like pocket watchers. Pocket watchers are people who's watching other people's pockets. I don't like pocket watchers because I believe usually a person that's obsessed with how much somebody else is making is because they wish they were making what that person is making. For me, I prefer to keep my own head down and keep my head in the game and just get the work. Why? I ain't got time to worry about what somebody else is doing. It takes your head and your mind off of the focus of where it needs to be. But in this case, how the heck are we supposed to ignore how his alleged best friend is making hand over fist, not based on facts? If it was based on facts and truth, I'd be like, go ahead, keep the party going, sis. Expose it all. But it's based on rabbit trails. Whatever new rabbit trail she can take you on today, that's what it's about. And do you ever notice that the rabbit trail that you're on today, the next day, it's like, wait a minute, I thought we was here, and now what? Wait, we need to go back. And you're so dialed in, and you're so tuned in that you have been manipulated not even to remember, well, what was yesterday's rabbit trail? And whatever happened with that? Nothing ever happens with that. That is the backdrop. She wasn't in the demand like she was before, so she started making wild and crazy claims. That is my opinion. And it is based on the analytics, and I don't know what else to conclude.
Okay, so I found that extremely interesting. What do you guys think? Makes sense, right? But it's despicable and disgusting. Okay, now, she mentioned when she was talking that she was dismissed from working with the Daily Wire because of her anti-Semitic remarks. Well, it's kind of weird that she even got hired at the Daily Wire because she had anti-Semitic remarks before that. So let me show you that. Okay, so this is Tree of Logic. I don't know if that's what she goes by today. I will find out though and leave her more recent YouTube channel in the description as well as this one. But she was calling out Candace from the very beginning. But because she was a little hostile to a lot of people, she just has, I think it's just her personality really. But many people were talking about her back then too and not knowing what to think because just knowing her, I guess. But she was like one of the very first ones calling her out. So let's see what she has to say. This is a video that was 7 years ago. So it was while she was with Turning Point USA.
And you took her out of context. Oh, no, not today. I won't. I'm going to show you the video and we're going to have the transcript so you can see for your very eyes as well as your ears what she said word for word. So she says that when people mention nationalism, they think about Hitler. I don't know about y'all, but Hitler doesn't come to my mind. And let's say, for instance, that's true. I'll go and say maybe the left thinks that. Why would you bring Hitler up, heifer? That's never a good idea, but she dumb. Here's the video. Let's watch it together.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism.
All right, so you heard the stupidity, right? Right? We're going to go over her words just in case, because like I said, some people are a little slow. Okay? Common sense ain't common with them, all right? They heard her say something stupid, but it just didn't register in the brain, okay? We're going to look at her words. All right, we're going to look at her words and break it down to show you what a dumb thing. This is the dumb thing she said. This is the reason why the white supremacists attacked me, because I was attacking her. The white supremacists love themselves some Adolf Hitler. And you know I go after these guys all the time. I'm the only black conservative. I'm the only black right-winger who fight against these racist white people on the right, especially the ones who love Hitler. And these very people are defending Candace because Candace is talking well about their ruler, Adolf Hitler. So let's break this down, shall we? And I know the butthurt going to be strong, but you'll be all right. You'll be all right. Just check this out. So hold on. Let's highlight some things here. Let's highlight this. There we go. So she said that Hitler was a National Socialist. And then she continues to say, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. So Hitler was making Germany great again? Hitler, oh my God, Hitler was making Germany great. He was killing it. We're going to go over all the, hold on, I'm going to get to that. Let me not jump ahead. We're going to get to the list of things of how Hitler made Germany great according to Candace, okay? But here's the thing, and white nationalists and the white supremacists and all the neo-Nazis who love Hitler. Then she goes on and said, the problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So, okay. Killing Jews, killing gypsies, killing Slavs, killing people who are disabled mentally and physically, and killing anybody who had any kind of deformity. Let's see. Actually, sterilizing blacks, sterilizing anyone of mixed race, sterilizing anybody who looked like a Jew, putting people who opposed him, including Jews, in concentration camps, gypsies in concentration camps. It really tore up the gypsies. People don't talk about that enough. He did a racial discrimination which had a hierarchy stating that if you were blue-eyed and blonde, you were the superior of the race, the Aryan race. And that if you was a Jew, you was at the bottom of the race. Dude, did you know this man hated Jews so much that he was like, Africans then Jews.
I find this really interesting. I do remember when this happened, but I don't think I really thought about it at all. I was just like, I didn't see it. I heard about it and I didn't get what the big problem. I thought people were just like making things like bigger than they were or whatever. But hearing this again and like seeing everything that's went on since this is 7 years ago, right? And it says, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. But that he wanted to like move out from Germany, right? Okay, so that made me think of something really important. So that means even back then, she was listening to certain revisionist history channels, and one of them is this documentary called The Greatest Lie Ever Told. And it's a very strange documentary. Like, I wish somebody who's like a really big history buff would debunk it. It was a big thing back then. And then I remembered that she made a documentary called The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. Remember that? Let me show you. The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. Candace Owens exposes only herself in her BLM documentary. The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, George Floyd and the Rise of BLM. On September 16th, Kanye West appeared on the popular hip-hop podcast Drink Champs, hosted by the rapper Nor and DJ EFN. Drink Champs is a free-flowing interview show. Think of a more convenient version of the Joe Rogan Experience, but for rappers and with more booze. At its very best, you'll hear a story from Ghostface Killah about how one time he drove the R&B group the Delphonics to a recording studio and got in a shootout on the way. At its worst, you'll get one of the most popular rappers ever ranting with a little pushback about Jewish business secrets. Okay, less discussed since then has been the other gut-wrenching claim made by Kanye West that George Floyd was killed by a fentanyl overdose. Okay, so that's talking about that, and I don't even know what all that is about. But West told Nor that he lifted them from another source, the far-right media provocateur Candace Owens' documentary, The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, George Floyd and the Rise of BLM. Owen has become a Rasputin-like figure in Ye's recent meltdown. Owens and Ye's on-again, off-again friendship goes back as far as 2018, when Kanye first donned a MAGA hat and said slavery was a choice. Before the Drink Champs episode, he appeared with Owens at a Paris Fashion Week wearing shirts he designed that read White Lives Matter. West was prepared to buy Owens' husband's fledgling anti-woke social media platform Parler, but the deal reportedly fell through. And this is really important. So we haven't got to her husband yet, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. I didn't know that West was going to buy Parler. As of late, West has gone for the harder stuff, appearing with white supremacist Nick Fuentes in a recent media tour. But before that, he was attending the premiere of The Greatest Lie Ever Sold in Nashville, posing on the red carpet with Owens just days before appearing on Drink Champs. Now, here's what's really important. The film was produced by Ben Shapiro's The Daily Wire and is the second in a series of right-wing documentaries by the company aiming to expose the evil lurking behind progressive shibboleths. I've never heard that word before. I'll have to look that up. The Daily Wire also produced Matt Walsh's anti-trans documentary film, What is a Woman? As reported by the New York Times, Shapiro and the Daily Wire co-CEO filmmaker Jeremy Boring aimed to make Nashville a new Hollywood, but without the liberals. Okay, now I find this even more egregious that she did this. She named her documentary that under Ben Shapiro's company, right? So let me show you. Okay, see this? The Greatest Lie Ever Told, the Holocaust documentary. Now, I had to go on Odyssey. The Greatest Lie Ever Told, the Holocaust documentary. Okay? Then she changed it to The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. So that means she knew about this obscure documentary. Then you have this one here. This, The Greatest Story Never Told. This is like 7 hours long. See here, the 632. This whole thing is all about Hitler. It changes. There's footage in this too. That's what's so crazy. There's footage with narrative that tells you like how to feel about the footage you're seeing, but it's sort of uncanny valley. Like it's weird. I don't know how they did this documentary, who did it, I'm not for sure, but it's been around for a really, really, really long time. This says 2026. This is like at least 8 years old. Okay. And so she was knowing about this back then, which is just wild to me. And I really wish somebody that was really good with history could figure out what's going on with this, because it is super, super deceptive. So I highly doubt that Ben Shapiro knows about those documentaries, because she's using a play on words for a Holocaust documentary under his brand. So I highly doubt that would have been allowed if he knew about those documentaries, because this is obscure conspiracy stuff. Like really, you would have to know about it. It was on YouTube back in the day, but you know, it's definitely not there anymore, but that's where it was, the whole thing. And I just looked and it wasn't there. That's why I had to go to Odyssey. Yeah. That's wild. That's wild work. I mean, imagine being that ballsy to use a play on those documentaries names for your Jewish boss. Like for a video you're making under his brand. Like that's wild. Wild. Anyway, let's move on with our story here. Okay, so I want to show you guys some stuff about Candace's past. So we're going to dive a little bit back into her past again. I know that we talked about the social autopsy, but I want to talk about what was going on before that a little bit more. Okay, so let's do that. So I found a video that's really interesting. This is 8 years old, this video. So let's check it out.
So you have a crazy story, an interesting evolution. You've suddenly caught fire. Who is this Candace person?
Plan to have this video be the first real content I upload to this channel. I've been working on a series of videos about the Milo Yiannopoulos book deal as a way to give everyone a look behind the scenes of the progressive publishing industry. But as a loyal and attentive subscriber to many channels in this so-called community, I felt very passionately that I wanted to talk about the Red Pill Black controversy. I promise I'm not being paid. This is not part of a funded misinformation campaign or a coordinated attack. As Red Pill Black said to Dave Rubin,
I'm just a girl that makes videos.
I hope other people will see these, look at some of the links for themselves, and remain skeptical. I don't think there's enough information or evidence to prove one way or the other what Red Pill Black, aka Candace Owens' intent is with this YouTube endeavor, and what her next steps are. But I think it's important to stay skeptical, and I think many of us just believed her story right off the bat, and it's only after Tree of Logic made a video that people started checking her story. As much as Candace talks about how she breaks the left's narrative, I think a lot of us forgot that she plays exactly into a narrative we'd really like to see. A young black woman realizing that the left is garbage, and suddenly seeing the light, and becoming an anti-SJW and conservative to boot. I first heard of her through Critical Condition, signal boosting her channel on Twitter. I watched her first couple of videos, thought they showed some promise, and then I watched her interview with Dave Rubin, followed her on Twitter, and kind of moved on. I didn't think too much more about her until I saw Tree of Logic's video about her. And while I do think that Shri can be conspiratorial and dramatic, I still feel she has good content and is earnest, so I decided to do my own research, which I had neglected to do initially. I saw a young Black woman claiming to have woken up, and it often feels like an automatic win for those of us fighting identity politics to see someone using identity politics against the left. I normally click every link in an article and go deep into rabbit holes, but even I neglected to delve into this rabbit hole. Until now. If you're watching this, you probably know that last year, Candace Owens, aka Red Pill Black, tried to get funding for a website called Social Autopsy, where people could submit people they know with screenshots of mean or offensive things they've said on social media, along with their personal information, linking them to their employer, schools they've attended, etc. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Social Autopsy website itself. I'll link below to Tree of Logic's video, as well as Dave Cullen's recent video. There's so much more to question about Red Pill Black than what everyone else has already talked about, so that's what I plan to get into here. Chris Reagan and Dave Cullen made really good videos.
Okay, so before we move on with that video, I actually found a really interesting article, and how I found this article was interesting too. So Wolfie on X put this out. Okay, so somehow Wolfie, let me show you him here, at Wolfie_823. I will leave this in the description box. Okay, so this email is from Candace Owens at degree180.com, and it has this stuff blocked out, but it says, "Hi Jesse, I just want to officially put in writing that you are making me very uncomfortable and I don't feel safe anymore. I am asking for you to stop following me and my every move on Twitter. I've had a few women reach out now, and I know your history with women going as far back as your college days. I also know that whatever transpired between you and Jamie Walton after she called you a predator, it was sick. You have blocked me, but are still stalking my blog, which is unhealthy, and you are now telling your followers that I condone rape. I do not have a prior relationship with you, and because so many journalists and women find you to be a predator, I am asking you to leave me alone. You need to draw a line with your obsession with me. Please let me know why, if you feel you can't do that, or if you feel I should join the other women before me who were forced to get the police involved. I am emailing your Gmail account so as to stay clear of the overactive spam filter. I have also blind copied my lawyer as well as a couple of other outside journalists to keep the matter transparent, since you often lie about correspondences. Candace Owens, founder and CEO, Degree 180. Now, okay, so I asked, who is Jesse, right? And so I was like, sounds like a dude and a journalist. We should find him. Maybe he was writing interesting stuff about her. And so then I did. I grokked it. I was like, Grok, who could this possibly be, talking about? Who it was Jesse Singal. I hope that's how you say his last name. Singal, maybe? A male journalist at the time, primarily writing for places like New York Magazine, The Atlantic, and focusing on topics like gender, psychology, youth culture, and online controversies. Okay, so that's what Grok told me. He wrote an article, but it was behind a paywall. And so then Grok got it for me. But we also found his, which I'm going to read it to you, by the way, because Grok got it for me and just like transcribed it, which was crazy. But we actually found his Twitter, which I will link this as well. Okay, so he says, after I wrote a 2016 story about Candace Owens that made her look like the conspiracy theorist she is. What? Conspiracy theorist she is. She wrote me and my boss an email saying I was making her uncomfortable by referencing her in public posts and insinuating multiple women had called the cops on me. I don't know if she was simply lying or was so addled that she thought it was true in the moment. That is always the tricky thing with her, but what she's doing to Crowder, who did on the merits clown himself, here is the absolute pattern. I know it's kind of funny that she kicked me off the "he's a creep" meme, and I don't know what all this means, but Jamie Walton is an anti-trafficking figure who got caught up in the Gamergate stuff in a convoluted way. Candace launched a change.org petition denouncing me. Walton left a comment saying I had cyberstalked her. Reed reached out for comment. Technically, she said I was like a predator, I think, again for reaching out to her to comment on a story. Okay, so that's what all this is going on. Of course, if he's researching these people to write stories about them, he's going to be around their blog and stuff like that. Anyway, and he says none of this is true at all. But this tweet is from 2023, okay? But the story was in 2016. So let's go there. Look, I'm going to be real honest with you guys. If I can't get people to subscribe or like, YouTube will literally send aliens to my house. Do you want me to be probed? I need you to like and to subscribe. Thank you. I had to take what Grok gave me and put it in this word, but the title of the article is The Strange Tale of Social Autopsy, the anti-harassment startup that descended into Gamergate trutherism. If you stumbled upon the Twitter account at Social Corner over the weekend, you might have immediately assumed it was being run by a type that's become sadly familiar online, the hardline Gamergator. If you spend enough time on Twitter or Reddit, you run into these folks occasionally, sitting at the far end of the obsessiveness bell curve. These are the dudes, and they're mostly dudes, convinced that a cabal of feminist social justice warriors, or SJWs, are controlling everything from behind the scenes, viciously targeting their enemies and punishing them for not towing an imagined wacko progressive line. Two common targets of this sort of obsession, and broadly speaking, two of Gamergate's biggest bête noirs, are the anti-harassment advocates Zoe Quinn and Randy Lee Harper. And indeed, they were exactly who at Social Coroner went after. For a large chunk of the weekend, the account came hard at both women, implying that they were part of a conspiracy that was about to be unmasked. At times, the account sounded like it was tweeting from a besieged bunker, with the armies of Quinn and Harper closing in. Randy and Zoe, stop sending your clowns to try and scare us with legal hell threats. If you're going to serve us, do it already. It could be unsurprisingly hard to follow, but at Social Corner repeatedly asserted its superiority over its alleged tormentors. I consider the constructs of our society thoroughly and often, I think analytically. Randy and Zoe really banked on my being dumb, it tweeted at one point. Keep sending the troops, Randy and Zoe XX, at another. Throughout, the conspiracy talk was thick. Responding to another user at Social Coroner wrote that it's literally a puzzle. The picture is obvious, but fitting the pieces will take time. Over the course of two tweets, separated by one in between, everyone pay attention to the mentions. They are literally exposing themselves in the mentions. We can trace this all back to the origins. On the one hand, yawn, sadly, these sort of claims are a dime a dozen on Twitter. On the other hand, at Social Coroner is the official Twitter account of Social Autopsy, an anti-bullying startup that launched its Kickstarter last week, and the rant against Quinn and Harper garnered it hundreds of new followers. Quinn and Harper are very strange targets for an organization like this. Generally speaking, there is almost zero overlap between the sorts of people who publicly and repeatedly denounce those two particular women and the sorts of people concerned with ending online harassment. Now, remember last episode where we talked about from the article we are reading Undone, manager, her guy that works for her, something Mitchell, and how his pitch to a potential client that knows Undone and told her about this was to start an online controversy with somebody in their field. Remember? So I find this extremely interesting knowing that. What the hell is going on here? It's a strange, slightly complicated story, but it's also a useful cautionary tale about what can happen when newcomers wander into the weirder, angrier corners of the internet without first reading a tour guide or two. Social Autopsy launched its Kickstarter campaign on April 12th, billing itself as a way to catalog the abuses of trolls and cyberbullies. Its founder is Candace Owens, a 26-year-old woman with a background in finance who has painful firsthand experience with bullying when she was in high school at Stamford, Connecticut. A classmate and former friend left racist death threats on her phone, sparking a local scandal that came to ensnare the mayor and his son, the latter of whom was in the car with the perpetrator at the time he threatened Owens. It's clear these events had an effect on Owens. The age of technology and social media has slowly disintegrated individual accountability, the consequences of which are devastating, she says in Social Autopsy's promotional video, which then rolls news coverage of a series of that may have been caused, at least in part, by cyberbullying. She then explains what Social Autopsy will do. We will attach people's words to their places of employment, and anybody in the entire world can search for them. What we are doing is figuratively lifting the masks up so nobody can hide behind, Twitter handles or privatized profiles. It's all real and it's all researchable. You can still say whatever you want to say on social media, but you have to be willing to stand by your words. According to the Kickstarter, the company is seeking $75,000 in funding and hopes to launch with 150,000 profiles. The pitch to anyone steeped in the world of social media in 2016 is odd, if not ominous. Owens is unclear how she plans to do any of the things she says she will, and listening to her description of the site that lifts masks and connects people's names to their employers, it's not hard to come to the conclusion that Social Autopsy's goals include de-anonymizing people online and making it easier to dox trolls and harassers. And that's exactly how the Kickstarter pitch was interpreted by most people who saw it. The freakout was both immediate and predictable. A site that allows users to report people for entry in a database that will portray them as a troll or a cyberbully has obvious potential for all kinds of abuse. In the days that followed, a rare degree of unity was achieved between various opposing factions in the endless internet culture wars. Gamergate and anti-Gamergate advocate alike agreed that this was a very bad idea. So basically what he's saying is that Gamergater and anti-Gamergate people, so people on both sides of this crazy thing that went on online, were in agreement that this was a terrible idea. So it brought them together. And that the Kickstarter's lack of details when it launched, there was little sign the company had given any thoughts to potential privacy concerns, nor to countermeasures against the inevitability of reports leveled against innocent people, suggested it was half-baked, potentially dangerous service that no one really wanted. The response to Social Autopsy seemed, in short, like a clear instance of the internet, that is, the market for the service itself, rearing up and issuing forth a guttural, ear-splitting no thanks. But that's not how Owens sees things. Instead, she's convinced the current online shaming she's experiencing, including death threats and violently racist language delivered into her company's inbox, are the result of a conspiracy, possibly a far-reaching one, spearheaded by Quinn and Harper. She thinks they, and particularly Quinn, are the ones sending her nasty email, or that they started the hysteria, which led to the inundation, at least. She also thinks they are operating a network of sock puppet social media accounts trying to take social autopsy down, all because they're afraid of what the nascent company will reveal about them once it's up and running. So this is either she's just prone to conspiracy theories or she doesn't know how the internet works. And with my experience that I talked about in the very first episode with this type of thing, when people weaponize their community against others, or when they, not even when they're trying to do that, they just start talking about another creator or another person on the internet in a negative way, it just takes on a life of its own. People will do all kinds of crazy stuff that you never asked them to do or you didn't think that they would do. And that's something I think people have slowly started to figure out. And a lot of people who aren't that familiar with the internet might not know, but that will happen. If you put some stuff out into the internet waves, whether YouTube videos or whatever, things will happen. So that's what was going on. And then she's blaming Quinn and them as if they're conducting the whole thing. There is no actual evidence any of this is true, and yet Owens thrust into an internet culture war she knew nothing about coming in has misinterpreted in a particular cringeworthy way various bits of mundane evidence as implicating Quinn and Harper. She has accidentally become a true believer in a common variety of Gamergate conspiracy, all without even really knowing what Gamergate is. And she's convinced she's about to break the whole thing open in a big blog post she plans to publish on her website, Degree 180. Later today, it all started with an email from Zoe Quinn to Owens the evening of the Kickstarter launch. For the uninitiated, Quinn is the original victim of Gamergate. Her ex-boyfriend, Iran Gioni, effectively launched the entire online movement. A lengthy, vindictive blog post he published about her in August of 2014, leading to a cascade of harassment and death threats that she has never fully abated since. She has expressed concerns about social autopsy on Twitter, and soon an autopsy intern gave her Owen's personal work email address. Quinn is a co-founder of Crash Override Network, a crisis helpline, advocacy group, and resource center for those experiencing online abuse. With the exception of a few instances in which she responded to individuals' claims below, Quinn said in a DM statement that she didn't want to comment on the particulars of her interactions with Owens. It's unfortunate that the public conversation that could have been about the project and the underlying merits of different tactics of fighting against online abuse has largely been hijacked by people acting in bad faith, hoping to cause a spectacle. The statement read in part, "I have no interest in allowing myself to be used for that." Shortly after Quinn initiated email contact, the two women were on the phone. It didn't go well. Owens said she found Quinn pompous and that she didn't like that Quinn's concerns, which varied from the potential of children getting doxxed by social autopsy to the threat she thought Gamergate posed to Owens herself, were well-founded. Quinn, Owens also told me, said she was calling on behalf of a group of anti-bullying organizers, but she wouldn't say which ones. Things got increasingly heated and Quinn broke into tears and said something like, "I don't think you understand. This is going to ruin everything." Owens said she found it odd and suspicious that Quinn started crying, especially given she was calling as a representative of various organizations. Well, I don't find it odd because Quinn was going through massive online bullying and she was being targeted for harassment. And so I imagine she wasn't in the best place. And then she was also talking to Candace, who isn't the nicest person we've all come to realize, right? After they got off the phone, the two had a brief email correspondence, which culminated, Owens said, in Quinn asking her not to contact her again. In a DM conversation, Quinn acknowledged she had teared up but denied saying anything that Owens could have interpreted as "this is going to ruin everything." She also denied having claimed to be speaking for anyone other than herself. About 45 minutes after Quinn sent her final email, Owens said she started receiving racist hate mail at the main Kickstarter contact email for Social Autopsy, and in her own personal email, the first email she received simply said inward, inward, inward. Owens is African American. It soon became a deluge of harassment, some of it violent, with many of the fake email addresses the harassers used containing words like gaming or a variation thereof. I spent an entire night being harassed. I couldn't even answer the real questions from people that were coming from our Kickstarter campaign, said Owens. Here are some of the messages she received, which are quite graphic. Note, the original article includes screenshots of graphic and racist emails sent to Owens. I've omitted them here for sensitivity. They involve slurs, threats, and references to gaming in the sender names. By the time I spoke with her on Saturday night, Owens had convinced herself that it was Quinn sending her at least some of those harassing notes. For one thing, she found the fake handles suspicious. Gaming was an industry and a community that I had, prior to talking to Zoe Quinn, no idea about. They were not on our radar. It seemed a little too pat that Quinn had warned her there would be a wave of harassment, and then voila, there was a wave of harassment, especially given that the Kickstarter had been operating for a better part of a day with a nary a critique from haters. I pressed Owens on this, and she really thought Quinn sent her the inward, inward, inward note, and that the other over-the-top hateful ones, she sent them or knew who sent them, she responded. 100% undeniable. The belief seems to hinge almost entirely on the facts that the abusive emails came in after she spoke to Quinn, and that both Quinn and some of the notes mentioned gamers. Owen said she woke up furious the next day and saw she had received an email in the personal work account that Quinn had been given, which she said to me, "Red flag, this is Zoe Quinn." It should be pointed out that Owen's work account is not hard to figure out. The email linked to a thread on 4chan's poll board, which is notorious for its reactionary politics and offensive trollery, in which users teed off on Social Autopsy and what a bad idea it was. So don't say no one warned you, the author of the email wrote, but seriously, you need to take the time to read the whole thread. Do not dismiss this. It will only hurt you in the future if you do so. Soon after that, Owens noticed that someone had posted about Social Autopsy on Reddit as well, and soon after that, someone had created a fake social media account on Twitter, Social Autopsy with the capital I instead of an L, to trick people. Owens attributed just about all of this to Quinn and her allies. Another big piece of evidence Owens highlights as proof of a conspiracy to take down her company is the open letter to Social Autopsy posted to Medium by a well-known Gamergate critic named Randy Lee Harper. In the letter, Harper, a frequent Gamergate target and anti-harassment advocate herself, tore into Owens for wandering into a situation she didn't fully understand. Harper noted that at one point, Owens referred to Quinn as a Gamergate leader. This is kind of like referring to Obama as a big Tea Party activist. Harper didn't hold back. "I'm telling you my credentials so you can understand where I'm coming from. When I tell you unequivocally you are a train wreck," she wrote at one point. Later, "you are an idiot." Then referring to the fact that the Kickstarter suspended funding for Social Autopsy. "You blamed your Kickstarter getting shut down on trolls. You are wrong. That was us. As long as you're willfully harming other people by creating S-word uninformed products while kicking the S-word out of anyone that tries to help you, we're going to keep shutting you down." To Owens, this level of anger just didn't make sense. There had to be something else going on. I started piecing it together and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually who those people are. This is crazy, she said. To find out more, she started researching Quinn and Harper's names. Quickly, she collided headfirst with a key point of Gamergate orthodoxy. Many online harassment victims, particularly professional victims like Quinn and Harper, are making up or exaggerating the harassment against them. Hardcore Gamergaters even think Quinn and Harper, or both, run elaborate ruses to try to convince the world that they are under online attack when in fact they aren't. Part of what makes these theories so hard to believe is that if you Google either name, you can see a disturbing number of people that have been utterly obsessed with both the women, particularly Quinn, since Gamergate broke. Given the sheer heat that has been blasted at them for so long, it would be bizarre if they hadn't been hit by wave after wave of abuse and threats. In a DM, Harper said, in part, "This isn't the first project that was likely well-intentioned, but lacked research into both technology as well as the psychology of harassment. Without that collective knowledge base and support of the pre-existing members on the online anti-harassment community, anyone entering this new tech sector is going to have a difficult time." This is a striking example of how successful Gamergate has tarred two of its targets. Owens, new to the controversy and just trying to understand more about the women who had criticized her, quickly became convinced that Quinn and Harper were some sort of internet supervillains. Lacking the full context of the Gamergate story and reading a trove of information which all seemed to confirm her suspicions, Owens fell in deeper. She felt her instincts about Quinn had been confirmed. I started reading obviously more into it about how people had suspected this for a while. Then Quinn is actually making money, she said, and that Randy doxes people. And they had a tweet saved of her calling for somebody's address and telephone number. This refers to an instance in which Harper released personal information about a debt collector. These two are like cohorts. They're going back and forth. They plan, and each of them has their own network. They both have a big following. I still do not know, admittedly, why Randy Lee Harper is. I do not know why I got an open letter from her. All I know is that she crafted the entire thing for me. Their network runs deep, so who knows? I don't know how deep this goes. Part of what has made this train wreck so depressing to watch is that almost all of it flows directly out of Owen's lack of understanding of this particular slice of the internet, which may have worked for various anti-bullying organizations like Tyler Clementi Foundation in the run-up to her Kickstarter launch, but it is clear from our conversation that she just hadn't been exposed to the kind of aggressive swarming mobs that define online harassment in 2016. When we're talking about social autopsy, her primary examples of the behavior she was hoping to catalog were people who left threatening Facebook comments about celebrities like Caitlyn Jenner. She thought it was important to discover, for example, the names of teachers who left viciously cruel comments against Jenner. Yes, people leave mean comments on Facebook, and yes, there is plenty of old school cyberbullying that should be addressed. But online harassment these days is much more complicated than that. Much more complicated even than the brutal, scary version Owens experienced growing up. Hey guys, so it's that time where I need to ask you to subscribe to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, just hit the like, please. If you don't do this, I will be abducted by aliens. Thanks! Understanding it requires understanding a lot about anonymity, about troll culture, and about who is likely to be a target in the first place. It doesn't appear Cohen's or her colleagues at Social Autopsy came in with any of this background. As if the internet were trying to hammer that point home, Owens and her organization are now experiencing the exact sort of harassment her organization didn't seem to fully take into account. The snowballing shaming which can come when an unpopular idea is put under a searing spotlight and the internet decides that the most important thing in the world to do, at least for the next day or so, or until some other, even more deserving victim comes along, is to mock and threaten and dehumanize whoever is responsible for that idea. Owen's somewhat naive understanding of what constitutes online harassment ended up backfiring on her in some pretty brutal ways. For instance, she got fixated on the word dox, mentioning that Quinn had used it in their tense phone call. Within a few hours after having spoken to Zoe Quinn and upset her, a board has been started on us on 4chan.org, an anonymous thread, and they're now telling the gamers that we are going to be doxing them, doxing minors, she told me. The word dox is being thrown around. I had never heard it. People had seen our campaign. We worked on it for 2 months. People gave us feedback. We had a whole article written in the Connecticut Post on the front page. And yet, she said, not a single person had used the word dox in the run-up to the Kickstarter launch. Now we're seeing the word dox in this chain, and immediately in my head I go, interesting word. Heard that first from Zoe. So because Quinn had mentioned doxing, then a bunch of other people had brought it up as well in the context of a Kickstarter campaign that at the very least strongly hinted it would be doxing people by unmasking people and revealing where they work. Owens became convinced that Quinn was behind all of the complaints. This happened over and over. Owens kept mentioning pieces of evidence that were just, well, the way things work online. But to her, they could only be a sign of a campaign by Quinn and Harper against her. Owens repeatedly circled back to the sheer volume of antisocial autopsy content she witnessed and the timing of it, a firestorm of vitriol that followed the pattern of every Twitter and Reddit pile-on for the last several years. Where someone says or does something, there is a brief pause while news of it spreads, and then there is a sudden explosion. Owens found it suspicious that there had been a lag time between the Kickstarter going up and the harassment wave, and that so many people seemed profoundly upset with her project. I'm thinking, even if I disagreed with something that was on Kickstarter, the amount of time people are investing should have been an immediate red flag to me, she said. No matter what you disagree with, you do not text and post for 24 hours regarding it unless you have a personal investment in the matter. You don't, especially if it doesn't even exist yet. We're in Kickstarter. Owens also found it incredibly suspicious that people were tweeting complaints at the FBI and other authorities. That is so funny because people did that. My personal name or whatever, people tagged my personal online name, not my brand name, on Twitter with the FBI tagged, saying that I was doing all this stuff that I wasn't doing. They were the ones actually doing it, and then anybody who responded to them, they said was me. So some people who are really loopy were doing that exact same thing. So that's so funny. Which, again, is a common tactic during just about every internet outrage. But to Owens, why would anyone do that unless they had a very personal interest in stopping social autopsy? At another point, she noted that one critic held all the way from the UK. What blogger has an interest in this all the way in the United Kingdom? Talking trash about us, it makes no sense. During our DM chats following our phone conversation, she also kept getting hung up on anonymity. She found it highly suspicious and indicative of a possible conspiracy that so many people were bashing her anonymously. If you don't use your real name on Twitter, why do you have so many followers? She asked me at one point. At another, Owen said she was pretty sure one particular account was in on the conspiracy because she tweeted at them asking them to reveal their real name only to her. They refused to do so. Eventually, Owens came to believe that a group of the Twitter accounts tweeting at her were all either controlled by Harper and Quinn directly, or they were colluding with them to attack social autopsy. I asked her to show me some of the accounts she thought were in on it, and she mentioned this at Izzy Galvez, a well-known within the community anti-Gamergate figure who had been tweeted repeatedly about social autopsy over the Kickstarter launch. He is only controlled by Harper and Quinn in the sense that he tweets a lot about online harassment. This is exactly the sort of thing he'd have a strong opinion about. If you possess some background about Gamergate, Izzy Galvez tweeting about a company like Social Autopsy is as surprising and suspicious as Bernie Sanders saying something negative about big banks. Pulling all her suspicions together, Owens laid out her full theory. She is convinced, based on a series of escalating misconceptions about how social media works, mixed with a dose of exposure to the Gamergate literature and some helpful input from the Gamergate supporters who have been following her tweet storms, that Quinn and Harper are making a lot of money by faking harassment against themselves to boost concern about the issue, and that they were worried Social Autopsy would blow their cover. The funny thing, Owens told me, is that her company's initial plan was to draw on data from public profiles anyway, so Quinn's sock puppets would have been safe. Again, the Kickstarter's mask-lifting language rendered this point rather fuzzy. But now, she said, she has different plans. She wants Social Autopsy to get more technologically ambitious and use it to tear down the entire Quinn Harper ring of sock puppet accounts and fake harassment. Owens seems to have trouble accepting that her idea simply wasn't well received by, well, anyone. Only a conspiracy can explain what is going on. Everything happened all at once, she said. Things don't go viral like that, okay? It wasn't viral. It was contained. It was contained within one community, the gaming community. That's not how viral works. Viral's viral. Owen's Twitter rants lasted a big chunk of the weekend. Sometimes she called out Quinn and Harper directly. Other times she retweeted questions and comments from the Gamergaters who were eyeing her cautiously, wondering if she could be a useful ally. So many different threads about her were started at @Action, Gamergate's Reddit headquarters, that mods there created a stickied Candace Owens Social Autopsy mega thread. She gave an audio interview to Ralph Retort, a far-right blog that has joined in on the dogpiles against Gamergate targets in the past. A couple times she tweeted out a #Gamergate sequel hashtag, not understanding how that might look to the people who have been involved in that controversy for a year and a half and who naturally get angry or excited at anything GG related. #Gamergate sequel coming to a theater near you Monday, April 18th, she wrote, referring to her upcoming big blog expose. Naturally, Quinn and Harper's enemies relished in the fact that the anti-harassment movement seemed to be eating itself again, and that in their eyes, a newcomer to this endless fight had exposed Gamergate's enemies for who they are. As a result of her accidental slide into internet obsession at a time when she could be figuring out how to address the numerous valid concerns the public had raised about her company, Owens is instead focusing laser-like on unraveling a conspiracy that exists only in the eyes of fevered Gamergaters and men's rights activists. It makes no sense, she said, of the outcry against Social Autopsy. In the end, this is a story about what happens when someone with good intentions but no real understanding of a complicated issue stumbles into it. Owens wanted to do something about online harassment, but her solution was flawed from the start. When people pointed that out, she saw enemies everywhere, and now she's convinced she's uncovered a vast conspiracy involving two of the most prominent anti-harassment advocates out there. It's a sad, strange tale, but one that highlights the complexities of dealing with online abuse. When I think of this Social Autopsy story, I just think it's so ironic, to start out, we're going to go deeper into her past a little bit, but to start out that way into the wide world of the internet, wanting to do something about online bullying for some reason, which I still think is weird. Like, I know that there's the story about her being harassed in school, but I don't think it was as big of a deal as it's made out to be sometimes when people talk about it. And when they talk about how it affected her and stuff like that, I just don't think it was that crazy. And it was also when she was really young. It was basically a fight over like a boyfriend-girlfriend drama thing. So it's sort of weird, like, that she would be doing the stuff she was doing before and then quit those jobs to open up a anti-bullying website that was going to collect people's data. So I still think that's like sort of weird, but that's because I'm also a little conspiratorial. It's just so ironic, isn't it, that she started an anti-bullying website, an idea, and then she became what she is. And it seems like she's always kind of been that way. So it's also weird that she wanted to start an online anti-bullying website. Like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I still haven't put the pieces together as to why she wanted to do that, really. Because I don't know if the story from when she was a kid really explains all that. Because she was working at Vogue and then she was working at a private equity company. Why'd she get it all of a sudden in her head to quit there and start this thing? I don't know. Does anyone else find that strange? Okay, let's get back to that video I was showing you.
They never became fully functional. In concept, it's frightening, and her response to it has been to dodge and just say, that's the past. I'm sorry, but you're new here, you're trying to build trust, and trust is what matters to a lot of people in this community. You don't have to say, I'm a bad person because I made it, but you should directly address people's very legitimate concerns. Candace either doesn't understand or is playing dumb about the fact that she walked into a community of creators that have an intricate web of devoted followers. I probably follow a wider range of people than most, people who may or may not be aware of each other's channels. These followers and subscribers have a high-level expectation for trust and transparency. A lot of people watched her interview on the Rubin Report, and he has a big, reasonable, liberal, left-leaning following, many who hate SJWs and PC culture and the Gamergate chicks. So her narrative was appealing to them, but they don't all listen to Stefan Molyneux or Andrew Clavin or InfoWars or Paul Joseph Watson. And correct me if I'm wrong, but except for when she was on Alex Jones earlier this week, she never said that her anti-bullying startup was a website called Social Autopsy so that people could easily look it up. I've seen many people on Twitter wondering why people are freaking out now. People are freaking out now because they didn't research her. They heard anti-bullying startup and didn't connect it with Social Autopsy. So when people found out she was behind Social Autopsy and hadn't...
Okay, so I want to show you another video that's much shorter that also is somebody saying, like, they don't trust Red Pill Black. That's what she was going by at the time. So let me pull that up.
On everybody, Jeff Holiday here. So today is an interesting day. It's a very, very fascinating day. So I saw recently, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, a woman by the name of Candace Owens, aka Red Pill Black, was on the Rubin Report, and I saw her and I was like, she seems really familiar.
How quickly did that jump to the way you thought about politics?
Instantly. I mean, I became a conservative overnight. You know, I realized that liberals were actually the racists, that liberals were actually the trolls.
That liberals were actually the racists, that liberals were actually the trolls.
So I'm racking my brain trying to figure it out. How do I know this person? Who is this person? So I went and I fired up the Google machine and I checked, and as it turns out...
About a day ago, I came across and was sent an incredibly sinister-looking project that is seeking funding on Kickstarter. Wave goodbye to cyberbullies and trolls. Socialautopsy.com. We are about to break the internet. Literally. How, exactly? I'll let their founder summarize in her own words.
Hey guys, my name is Candace Owens and I am the founder of socialautopsy.com, the first ever search database that aggregates people's social behavior and creates real profiles for them. So what we do is we attach their words to their places of employment.
That's right, that's the Candace Owens, the one who wanted to start Social Autopsy, which is a website dedicated to being able to anonymously submit the sins of people on the internet so that it would be forever attached to them. And now it gets even worse than that. It's not just simply I'm going to report people that said mean things or did mean things on the internet. Oh, no. They also wanted to attach, well, as much personal information about you as possible. Like, I don't know, where you work.
So what we do is we attach their words to their places of employment.
Where you live, what your name is, and attach this to every single little venting moment that you had on the internet. Anytime you lashed out in anger, that all of us can identify with. All of us. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of people were very, very angry about this idea, and there was petitions and all sorts of reports going on. And as it turns out, as reported on April 15th by the Daily Dot, controversial bully-shaming database loses Kickstarter, but will launch anyway. And hey, here's a great quote right from that actual article right now. What's the #1 defense people use when they're making awful comments online? I'm exercising my First Amendment rights. The creators of Social Autopsy wrote, let's create a database where we capture them exercising those rights and create digital records that anyone can access. I wonder why they'd want to do that. The unpublished site currently has about 20,000 profiles, but the creators' goal is to launch Kickstarter, I'll be damned, with 150,000 profiles. Really? Now, I'm not going to focus on this too terribly much because, to be honest, if you really want to know how social autopsy happened and how it developed, and even how Candace Owens feels about it lately, well, I've gotten 2 links down in the description from Harmful Opinions, and he does a fantastic job of cataloging this whole situation. Now, what's fascinating is recently Candace decided that she's just going to become a conservative. She got red-pilled, which term, by the way, I hate the term red-pilled. It's obnoxious. But anyway, now what's immensely frustrating for me is Candace is basically promoting herself as, I am a black conservative woman, so I am this marginalized voice that does not agree with the social justice, political language, and dialogue. Well, okay, that'd be one thing, but you also created a database for doxing people, a database that you yourself said you were comfortable with the idea of cataloging the behavior of children, of minors, so that they would feel the pressure, the societal ostracism pressure of not being able to freely express themselves online for fear of them, I don't know, whatever kind of reprisals can happen. It's not like anybody ever had, I don't know, a dangerous situation happen because they were doxxed. But even more so, if you need a strong black female conservative, like there's Patty Politics. My buddy Patty, she's not a flip-flopper. She wasn't last year a social justice warrior that was advocating for the actual doxing and documenting of people who committed thought crime. But no, Candace, someone who has an entire infrastructure for promoting herself, an entire background system by which she knows how to inject herself into the public discussion, she's the one that's going to get the big promotion. Okay, well, that's a little weird to me, but I digress. So Candace goes on the Rubin Report, and it's a weird interview. It's very, very strange. But today she was on InfoWars. And now you have people like Alex Jones and Paul Joseph Watson trying to defend this woman who created this doxing database. Which, if you think about it, is a little strange, because you have this massive conspiracy-ridden Sandy Hook was a hoax kind of media corporation who are all anti-globalist, anti-blah-blah, pro-free speech, etc., 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 and they're promoting this person who created an Orwellian nightmare of a website. Oh, but Jeff, I mean, that was last year. She had a change of heart. And it's fine now because she's been red-pilled, right? Well, you see, the problem is that the website is actually still up. It's still up. Go to socialautopsy.com. Now, they've kind of started to scrub a little bit about it. Like, if you go to the About Us right now, well, let's blank it. Okay, well, how about the FAQ? Okay, well, so that would make it seem like, hey, maybe they're on their way now to scrubbing the website because it was a bad idea. But then again, think about it like this. First of all, it takes no time to scrub a website. And she's been promoting herself as this changed person for weeks, if not months now. And on top of that, and the second most damning part about this is, if you go to the submit a person, aka be sure to tell us all about the thought crime of the people, well, that part is still up. You can still submit some information. I think we should do that. Let's submit. All right, here we go. Let's see. Photo of the user. Her name is Candace Owens. Current employer, self-employed. Schools, no. Social account URLs. Twitter.com/redpillblack. City and state, don't know, but it's nice to know that you are actively looking for where people live. That's cool. Appreciate that. Or where they went to school. That's a good one. This person wants to catalog people for thought crime. Review and send to the morgue. Success. Thank you for submitting the user to the morgue. The morgue. How charming that is. So a lot of these people are trying to herald her as the next powerful conservative voice in the culture war.
And her was social coroner. Like, I don't know. That's so weird. What's with all this, like, death stuff? I don't know, man.
She's still allowing for the documenting of people and their doxing and the cataloging of their behavior. How is anybody cool with this? I am not a conspiracy-minded person, but this is legitimately fucking scary. I don't get it. And furthermore, my mind is reeling by this whole idea that InfoWars is promoting her. Because not only is InfoWars terrible and has always been terrible, I mean, it is entertaining to watch, but on top of this is, they're choosing to deal with somebody who is wanting to create the Orwellian 1984 nightmare, while at the same time, check it out, they are currently peddling supplements that have been found to contain high amounts of lead.
So I find it interesting that Megyn Kelly is on the screen. The universe is so weird and strange. Don't you think? Is she reporting this story or what? Newsweek.
Wow. So the only thing that I can think of, and the only thing that's making any sense to me right now, is the people at InfoWars who decided that this person was who they needed to promote have been taking too many other supplements and are getting neurological diseases from all the lead in their brain. It takes 5 minutes to blank a website. That's it. 5 minutes. 5 minutes to log into your DNS and disable it pointing to the server. It takes no time whatsoever. If Red Pill Black honestly wants people to believe that she's changed, then maybe she needs to take down her doxing website. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that nobody can ever grow and improve and change their mind about something. Of course they can. But you also have to show that you change. You have to earn trust, especially when you have butchered the idea of trust from the very get-go so horribly. And a final suggestion from me to you, Candace, we'll call this one a freebie, is when you're being accused of, well, being duplicitous because you're not showing that you changed in any way, only that you know how to parrot the same kind of talking points that'll put you on TV, maybe take down your 1984 website and don't post something like, I'd like to thank all of you guys who didn't believe the funded misinformation campaign against me this week. Funded misinformation campaign. Wow. Did you take those supplements from InfoWars too?
Okay, so I found that really interesting and enlightening. Also, I have another video to show from that time period that's short.
Hey everybody, I'm the Ranting Monkey, and today we're going to talk about Red Pill Black.
I'm just a girl that makes videos. The history is I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. I went to school at the University of Rhode Island, pursued a degree in journalism, which is quite ironic.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Someone that studied journalism that's trying to tell the truth? This is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think of all the things I've seen about Candace Owens, aka Red Pill Black, this is the one that annoys me the most. Her interview with Dave Rubin was just so annoying. Not just because she was blatantly lying during it, but because Dave doesn't seem to know she was lying about it. Together they're laughing about honesty in journalism, and there's just none in this interview. If there was any journalistic integrity, Dave would have been able to call her out on her. Sorry guys, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about who Candace Owens really is. I first heard of Candace Owens way back in April of last year. Chris Reagan had done a video on a Kickstarter Candace was running for a site called Social Autopsy. We'll come back to that in a few moments. 18 months ago, I just thought, wow, that's a really horrible idea, and then I forgot all about it. That was until Tree of Logic released this video.
The sole purpose of this video is to inform and warn the public of the soon-to-be-launched doxing website called socialautopsy.com. But that doesn't matter to Candace Owens, aka Red Pill Black. She believes that I and you should be punished for being politically incorrect on the internet. And how should we be punished? By having our personal information such as our legal name, our address, employer, URLs to all our social media accounts, the list of every school we attended, and a screen cap of all the mean things we said on the internet to be displayed on a website for everyone to see.
She's not kidding. That's exactly what Social Autopsy was set up to do. It was a feature highlighted in the Kickstarter video where they tried to raise $75,000 to make this website.
With the ability to privatize social profiles and use pseudonyms in place of real names, it has been a free-for-all. That is, until now.
Hey guys, my name is Candace Owens and I am the founder of socialautopsy.com, the first ever search database that aggregates people's social behavior and creates real profiles for them. My team and I came together because we all grew up during this generation of the huge technology boom, and we understand the harm that social media like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter has allowed for, which is essentially a dehumanization. How can we bring it back to the "we don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all," or the old school "say it to my face" mentality online? Our answer was simple: through accountability. So what we do is we attach their words to their places of employment, and anybody in the entire world can search for them.
One of the points Tree talks about is how Candace has reinvented herself. A year and a half ago, she was launching a website about bullying that basically doxed anybody who said mean things. Then she disappeared from the internet for a while, only to return 4 months ago and become a conservative media darling. Not only did she appear in that Dave Rubin interview, she's also been on with Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson, and was even on Fox News with Jesse Waters. Just yesterday, she was on again with Alex Jones.
And it's an exciting time to be alive, and I encourage everybody out there, get your voice out there. Don't be scared to say whatever you're thinking. Nobody can stop you.
Wait, what the did she just say?
And it's an exciting time to be alive, and I encourage everybody out there, get your voice out there. Don't be scared to say whatever you're thinking. Nobody can stop you.
Questioning people's motives can be a hard game. You can never really know what's in their heart. But sometimes we get clues that people are just entirely full of
After college, I was in a lot of student loan debt. You know, I came from a family that doesn't have any money whatsoever, and I had to just pay it back. So the smartest move for me was to go into finance. I hit the ground running in New York City, worked at a private equity firm for 4 years, left that firm and wanted to do my own anti-bullying startup thing that went really sideways when the left tried to do hit pieces on me during the election, and that was my red pill moment.
I didn't see anybody on the left say Jack website. I did see anti-SJWs talk about it. People like Mundane Matt, Harmful Opinions, and of course, Chris Reagan. But why let a thing like honesty disrupt a good narrative? Keep telling Dave what he wants to hear.
Feel free to take us down that road for a little bit.
Yeah, so long story short, that whole scandal is built on a girl named Zoe Quinn who says that she was attacked by anonymous white men on the internet. So I was doing an anti-bullying startup that I was really passionate about, and I got a phone call from her, and I put up basically a 3-minute video on Kickstarter teasing what we were going to do. I said this one sentence, which was a figure of speech that I think set the alarms off. I said, what we're doing is figuratively lifting the masks up off of trolls.
Liar. That's not the only objectionable thing you said there. You said you were going to tie people to their employers. You were going to dox people. Sorry, I'm still in the real world. Carry on.
At the time, she was working at Twitter. She was working for Twitter for something called Crash Override Network, and I immediately received an inbox from her on Twitter saying she'd like to talk to me about and try to convince me that the project that I'm doing is bad, which is very interesting. Yeah. So she calls me up, and I have no idea who she is. I don't know what Gamergate is. I don't know what doxing means. And she says, you have to pull your project because people actually don't want to find out who harassed them. She said, I'm a victim, but I never want to know who harassed me on the internet. Like, she was basically arguing a point that didn't make sense. If she was actually harassed on the internet, then obviously my technology would be a godsend, because they never figured out who harassed her. And I said, I appreciate the phone call. This isn't really making sense to me.
Yeah. It sounds literally the reverse of what you think she would have called you to say.
Absolutely. Like, she should have been on board with what I was doing. So totally appreciate the phone call, but I'm not going to pull my Kickstarter. And she started crying. And she said, if you don't, it's going to ruin everything. And she told me that she spends time on 4chan because of what she does, and she saw that people were already talking about my project, and if I didn't pull it, these anonymous white men and Trump supporters, because you have to remember this was during the election cycle, were going to come after me and dox my family, which essentially means put up their personal information so people can try to kill them. That's what she says.
So she said this is what they are going to do. So she was oddly threatening you with being doxxed, but it wasn't she that was going to dox you.
She thought I was a total moron, I think,
Sorry to show so much of that, but that is such a beautifully crafted lie. We had to watch the whole thing. I am perfectly willing to believe that Zoe Quinn would be worried about whether or not a troll is known. There's rumors out there that she sent herself hate mail, but this website really wouldn't do anything about that unless she reported herself for it. But the dead giveaway there was the, you're going to ruin everything. That makes no sense with the rest of the story. Why would Zoe be worried that Candace is going to ruin everything by getting herself doxxed while making a website to dox people? That is absolute insanity. That Dave didn't catch this, that this didn't make him go, wait, what are you talking about? Just speaks volumes to how Candace has become such a big figure with conservatives. And yes, I know Dave doesn't consider himself a conservative, but he's certainly played to them the last year or so. And here's Candace telling him exactly what he wants to hear. Zoe Quinn, bad guy. And yeah, Zoe's. But this story doesn't make any sense.
They're hired, and the higher ups definitely know about it. They are hired to take people out and to take businesses out that, are a threat to them for some reason. And my threat was that they actually thought that I created technology that was going to unmask trolls. Imagine what that would have done in the heat of the election. Hillary Clinton had millions of followers on Twitter. What if I actually created something and said, actually, that's all coming from, that's like one person, they create all these accounts. She's actually not winning this election. What if I found out on Twitter that the person that was writing Black Lives Matter saying,
so this is the conspiracy that she's now made up in her head, that oh, what if I was able to do all this stuff that would have helped the conservatives find out who was having a lot of bots or who was having this? You know what I'm saying?
Was actually someone that worked in Hillary's campaign to create this environment. So they were actually terrified that I created something, that was going to ruin everything.
So wait a minute. So did you actually create? No. Right. So that's the thing. So you didn't even create this technology.
They'd actually done their job as journalists and asked me questions about what I had created. They would have left me alone.
But all right. And then Kickstarter pulled it?
They pulled it. Didn't give me a reason. They just pulled the project off. An anti-bullying. Could you do anything that's more innocent and more PG? An anti-bullying. Hey, we're raising money. We want to try out this, anti-bullying tech startup type thing. We had nothing but a splash page at that point.
You've really got to give her credit. She's done her homework. She knows the audience she's playing to here. And while she's a manipulative liar, she's playing the game very well. She's very smart. Here she is, a young, beautiful black woman, telling people like Dave Rubin and Paul Joseph Watson that the Hillary machine was out to get her, to stop her website, because there was an army of Hillary trolls that didn't really exist, who had been unmasked if the technology was real. She pulls Zoe Quinn and Gamergate into it, for sake. She couldn't be more transparent. The people who want to believe that there's a beautiful young black woman out there who agrees with them and sees all that they see, well, they're not even going to question her. They're not even going to stop and ask, hey, what was your website really about? Here she describes it as just anti-bullying. It's a docs website. It includes real names, the town you live in, and picture. Now, in reality, the website wouldn't work very well because it requires your friends to tell on you. But that doesn't mean the concept wasn't garbage, or that 2 minutes of research shouldn't have been done so that these people interviewing her could call her on her nonsense. Candace here's what we call a pretty little liar, and she's very good at it. And yes, she deserves condemnation for that. She's not the real problem. The real problem are people like Paul Joseph Watson, Dave Rubin, and Alex Jones. And of course, all of their viewers who just watch this and see this pretty face and immediately go subscribe. In 4 months, with only 14 videos, Candace has 147,000 subscribers. She's playing to ideologues, and she's doing it very well. But she's not the real issue. She is a symptom. They're the problem.
Okay, so I will leave those 2 videos linked below as well. Anyway, that just gives you an idea of what people were thinking and talking about back then when all this was going on and writing about, apparently, because we read that article. Let's go back to the video.
Called her out by name, they got suspicious. I've not seen anyone go into Candace's past, at least not in any of the videos I've watched, but I did some research and I think her past is important to know when judging her now. So I'll provide links in the description for where I found a lot of this information, and then I'll detail it for you right here. When she was 17 and in her senior year of high school in Stamford, Connecticut, she started hanging out with her boyfriend more than her close guy friend liked. This close guy friend got drunk, was driving around with some friends, and decided to leave her threatening voicemails, which included racial epithets and threats to tar and feather her family. She told a teacher, who reported to the cops, and because one of the boys in the car was the 14-year-old son of the governor of Connecticut at the time, the story blew up and she basically became known in local circles as someone who was a victim of hate crime. Apparently, she said she received cyberbullying once this happened, though she never speaks about that at any great length that I could find. Even in the TEDx talk where she mentions it, she describes the cyberbullying as mean comments online that she saw posted on articles about her that she chose to read. She doesn't describe any violent threats she received beyond the initial voicemails that launched this incident. She clearly became a media sensation, but there's no evidence of what we would all consider to actually be cyberbullying or online harassment. This was clearly an experience that traumatized.
Okay, so I have an article about that. And I believe Wolfie posted this as well, but I screen grabbed it a long time ago, so I'm not really for sure exactly who, but I think it was Wolfie. Okay, victim of alleged hate crime arrested on harassment charges. The victim of an alleged hate crime, of which the mayor's son was a suspect, was arrested yesterday, accused of sending a threatening message from her Facebook.com account, police said. Oh, the irony. Candace Owens, 18, of 235 West Main Street, Stamford, was charged yesterday with second-degree threatening and second-degree harassment. Owens allegedly sent a digital message to another person's account threatening physical harm, said Stamford Police Sergeant Joseph Kennedy. He was not able to say last night when the message was sent or give any details about its content. Kennedy said the victim in the case was not involved in the February matter when 5 teenagers in a car allegedly left Owens racist voicemail messages. One of the boys was identified by sources with knowledge of the case as Mayor Daniel Malloy's 14-year-old son. Owens was then a senior at Stamford High School. The messages were sent days after an argument in school with a fellow student, Evan Kopek, who was charged with first-degree harassment and second-degree intimidation by bigotry or bias in the voicemail incident. But the other suspects were juveniles. Police have not commented on their charges in that case. Owens' family filed a federal lawsuit against the city in May, accusing Stamford of failing to protect her after the suspects were allowed to remain in school without suspension or expulsion. Robert Owens, Candace's father, declined last night to comment on his daughter's arrest. Owens was released on a $1,500 bond and is scheduled to appear October 26th in State Superior Court in Stamford.
Her because once she went to college, she developed an eating disorder that lasted for 5 years, which she spoke about in her TEDx talk. She said this was because she was worried about fellow incoming freshmen judging her, who had read the news stories about her. This was why she developed the eating disorder. But she went to University of Rhode Island, and everything happened in Connecticut. How many people from Connecticut went to her university that would even be aware of this? She even went by her mother's maiden name to separate herself from the whole incident. But she doesn't say if anyone actually judged her or was mean to her or gave her.
Okay, so that's interesting, and I wonder if anyone's picked up on that she supposedly went by her mother's maiden name, which I'm still confused about exactly what her mother's maiden name is. It's a little confusing, but has anybody tried to look into that name in that area or on social media or stuff? Something is going on. I find that suspicious. That seems really weird. I just have a really, really weird feeling about this, guys. That just seems so odd. Do you guys not think that's odd? Do you guys not find that odd? I find that incredibly strange. That's just so weird.
At college because of it. From what I can tell, it seems to have been her own mental issue. She also refers to this period during her interview with Stefan Molyneux as a bout of anorexia. And that's all she says, which seems a bit inconsistent with what she's written and said in her TEDx talk. And it's also like weird to gloss over that when her whole intent with social autopsy was to prevent the effect bullying has on kids and the effect she says it had on her, which it manifested in eating disorder. So it feels very disingenuous to me. Then she worked in finance for a while and then left to start this anti-bullying startup, as she refers to it. She launched a company of which she was the CEO called Degree 180, which was a website designed to make the internet a nicer place, to clean up the internet, quote, smart content for millennials. The website's still up. According to Wayback Machine, they launched in April 2015, though the site looked different back then and said they were a creative agency that was doing events and then just also happened to have a blog. Her editor-in-chief was quoted in an article saying, freedom of speech is a very important thing, but I don't think it was meant to protect anonymous hate speech on the internet. Great. As the director of content for Candace's site, I think it's safe to assume what Candace's view was on this topic, at least as of March 5th, 2016, when the article was published. So then she launched the Social Autopsy Kickstarter on April 13, 2016, and it was shut down the next day, April 14, 2016, for a violation of terms of service. I'm not going to go over all the details of Candace's story regarding the infamous Zoe Quinn incident, as I'm going to call it, It's been covered already by her and by other YouTubers, so you'll find helpful sources in the description. In brief, she blames Zoe Quinn of Gamergate fame for unleashing an army of trolls on her and getting Kickstarter to pull her funding. So after her Kickstarter's funding got pulled and the Zoe Quinn incident was over, she went on a YouTube channel called The Ralph Retort and did 2 interviews with him 10 days apart. I haven't seen anyone talk about these interviews, so I really want to get into them here. The first happened on April 16, 2016. Paul Joseph Watson has said that Candace talked about all this stuff in interviews if we'd only just go listen. So I did, guys. I'd already watched her on Rubin, and I went over that interview again. I listened to her on Stefan Molyneux, on Paul Joseph Watson, Alex Jones, Andrew Clavin, War Room, and Fox News, and then these Ralph Retort interviews, which were from immediately after the social autopsy incident. And the more I listened to her, the more her lack of substance and depth became really apparent. She explains on the Ralph Retort that before they launched the Kickstarter, they had consulted with high-profile anti-bullying organizations because they had been part of this collaboration with all these organizations. And even though these people had a bunch of initial questions, she soothed all their concerns. She said that when Zoe contacted her, she said it was on behalf of bullying organizations that had contacted her, and Candace didn't believe that. She wanted Zoe to name names. Meanwhile, Candace just keeps referencing these anti-bullying organizations she was connected to herself, but she never names names. She relates the story about the Zoe incident, which, if you've watched all her interviews, is incredibly slick and rehearsed. I'm sure it's partly due to personality and her experience public speaking, as I said, she gave a TEDx talk in the past, but it's still suspicious how rehearsed it is and how much she stays on message. When relating the story about the Zoe call in this interview, Candace said that she herself isn't that emotional, especially when the emotions don't make sense to her.
I just thought of something. Why did she do a TED Talk? Okay, so Candace Owens says that she grew up poor and that her family didn't have any money, even though they lived in Stamford, Connecticut, which is a pretty pricey area, I think. And then she says that she had like a bad life, but then her cousin says that she lied about all that she's capped on her family. And then, like, somehow a person who, by the way she wants you to think, grew up in just like poverty, like a black poverty family, right? The way she was portraying it, somehow goes to work at Vogue and then a private equity firm, and then is doing TED Talks, like where, and then she quits the private equity firm to open up a site that catalogs people. Then she gets put all over every conservative. She was even on Fox News. Like, this is just weirder and weirder the more I think about it. I want to pull something up that I have saved. Okay, this is from Andrea. I will leave her Twitter post below, but I want to read this to you. I think now is a good time to put this in. And she did say, like, it needed to be researched more. It was just desk research to me or something like that. But a lot of the stuff in this keeps getting mentioned. I haven't had time to do all that, but I just want to give you guys warning that not all this might be like exactly true or portrayed exactly right, but I feel like it's really interesting. You are missing, so this is in response to Tamara's timeline that we went over. You're missing the Vogue and PE years, which are the ones she's trying to keep hidden. Here are some details, including some names that are important, as they show her social climbing. In 2010, she meets Iona Alexandrescu, who later joins Vogue as an intern in the accessories department, August through September 2011, and becomes co-founder at Degree 180 in 2015. She worked at PE firm Colbeck Capital between 2013 and 2015. The connection with Iona is particularly important as she has the exact career path that Candace claims to have had. Vogue intern, PM firm, Degree 180. There is proof that Candace was at Vogue and Degree 180, of course, but no public record of her working for PE firm. I'll get back to this below. In 2011, Candace's Vogue internship starts somewhere after April. Not clear how long it lasts, but it ends before 2012. 2011, she starts dating former millionaire matchmaker Jordan Osher, who is Jewish, and writes about the relationship later on in Degree 180 posts. Now, this is really interesting because anybody watching what Candace Owens is doing to Erica Kirk sure makes a big deal about people Erica Kirk dated. and saying they were all not just regular people, that they were, baseball players or whatever. I can't remember exactly what she said, but I remember what she was insinuating, and it was that, right? But yet she has the same stuff. She projects everything on to other people. Back then she was using this handle, Candace_Amber. I invented the Eggo waffle. Wow, she only has 85 followers. And then this is the guy she was dating at the time. Wow, he doesn't have very many followers either. That's weird. That's suspicious. Don't you think? I think that's really weird. In late 2011 or early 2012, she leaves Vogue, joins PE firm. This is what she claims. In her Blackout book, she claimed while she was working as a VP of admin at a PE firm, she tried to bring in another friend of hers who was in need of a job. The friend of hers that fits the description is actress Suzette James, a former high school colleague of Candace, and the one who got her into the now renowned video below. Oh, that's right. See this? Candace was in a rap video, and she was also did modeling. So, yeah. That's suspicious. Not really, but by her standards, it is, right? If the story in Blackout is true, it means that Candace tried to hire Suzette at the PE firm where she was working. Could be true, but it's much more likely that she borrowed elements from the stories of Suzette and Iona and invented a character to fit her book narrative. Iona started working for Colbeck Capital in 2013 as an admin assistant. If Candace's claims from Blackout is true, and she did start at the PE firm in 2012 and became VP of admin by 2013, it could mean that she actually brought Iona in. 2015, Candace starts Degree 180 with Iona. While at Degree 180, she maintained connections with some important names. So I clicked on the links that she's providing. If this is the same PE firm that Candace worked for, was she the first hire from Vogue? Her story from Blackout suggests that she tried to hire an old colleague as an assistant, but that didn't go through. So, if Alexa didn't end up hired, were the other two admin assistants hired by Candace or by someone else? Or is this not the PE firm Candace worked for? Almost 4 years to the day that we met, Alexa called me quite frantically in need of a place to live. She was divorcing her husband, a boyfriend she had married on a whim, because she told me that he was a drug abuser. She didn't have the money to hire a lawyer and needed someone who could help her sort through the steps. I let her move in with me temporarily, meticulously working with her through all the paperwork until everything was properly filed. The experience brought Alexa to a reflexive point. She was sensing that she needed more structure and was tired of trying to make it as an actress in Brooklyn. By then, I had been promoted to a more senior position at the firm I had worked for, and we were by chance looking to hire assistants. I pleaded with Alexa to take the job. She would no longer have to live paycheck to paycheck, I argued. She could start a savings account. She could have excellent benefits and begin making meaningful network connections. And she didn't have to give up her beloved acting classes either. She could simply convert them into a weekend hobby. Alexa came in for an interview a few days later and met with our team. They loved her, and I was given the clearance to formally offer her the position. I was ecstatic to deliver her the good news and she was overwhelmed to hear it. I only asked that she take the weekend to really consider the position before committing to it. I didn't want to jeopardize my professional reputation by recommending someone who would quit a few months later, leaving us on the hook to find another replacement. When the weekend ended, Alexa called me and told me her answer. She thanked me profusely, but she simply couldn't give up on her dream. She knew in her heart that she could make it as an actress, and now, at the ripening age of 26, she couldn't squander her last good years being trapped inside an office. Besides, she had a script she had been working on for a series. She was going to dedicate every waking moment of her time and energy into perfecting it. I remember feeling both slightly disappointed but overwhelmingly proud of her for not giving up her passions. I felt that familiar flutter of envy at the beautiful persistence of her dreams. That's weird. That is really weird. Shelby Drummond is her former Vogue boss. If you remember, Candace claimed she was among the abused Vogue interns, except that she stayed in touch with Shelby even had her around at her birthday party in 2015 while Candace was working for the PE firm. That next name on 180-degree event list is Marcy Blum. Marcy was the one who, in 2014, organized the wedding of Fabiola Beresca, a socialite sharing the same circles with Shelby and Jason Beckman from Colbeck Capital, PE firm in New York. Next comes Marissa Van Bolkhorst, relevant here for two reasons: Vogue connections and PE World connections through her husband. Marissa worked at Vogue as an accessories assistant around 2026 and 2028, the same department as Shelby, just different years. Back in 2015, both Robin Van Bolkhorst listed business affiliations were based at the same New York City address, 888 7th Avenue, 29th floor, New York, New York. This matters because it's the same address where Colbeck was located. In 2015, Colbeck Capital Management was located at 888 7th Avenue, New York, New York, in Midtown Manhattan. A small world for sure, and Candace was right at the center of it. Next, Sarah Arison. She is the granddaughter of Ted Arison, an Israeli-born Jewish businessman who founded Carnival Cruise Lines after serving in the Israeli Defense Forces. Sarah herself is involved in organizations like the Jewish Museum. I was not able to find one single public report of the event Degree 180 claimed to have organized with these people. It's possible that it never happened, and Candace was just using their names for status signaling. Okay, so here's her tweet about that. Back in 2015, Degree 180, Candace's marketing agency was promoting this event for refugees. The blog entry was created in July 2015. I can't find any public record showing that the event actually took place. There's nothing on Wyclef's website or social profiles, and no record of the event on Rescue.org's website or social profiles. The IRC was supporting other events with similar themes, and Wyclef was present at other events in September, but no mention of this one. So did it ever take place? Could one of the people mentioned confirmed it happened? Nobody said anything? Save the date, September 24th, 2015. The Degree 180 presents the Back to School Carnival. What is this? Is this like a real thing that she made for an event? It looks, oh my gosh. The Degree 180 presents the Back to School Carnival in association with the International Rescue Committee. And then it's like 4 refugees written up here in terrible handwriting, honoring Angelina Jolie with a special live performance by Wyclef Jean. Location, Paramount Hotel, Queen of the Night, in commitment with all these people. Candace Owens, Degree 180. Iona Andrescu, Degree 180. Huh, that's weird. So did she just make that up? That is weird. This is weird. This image is weird. Oh my gosh, what do you guys think about this? This is really weird. In 2015, Candace leaves the PE firm and focuses on Degree 180. Now on Colbeck Capital, Iona worked there, as per her own CV. If Candace worked there too and left in 2015, this might overlap with her moving into the famous moldy apartment in October 15th. Yes, it does. That's where she was living, I think, when she disappeared too. So in the part of the timeline where she disappears for like 7 or 8 months, something like that, I think it's when she was living in that apartment not paying rent. I think. That's what I have in my mind anyway. She might have left both her employer and her previous rental place at the same time. Curious timing, especially since she had no other official employer after that and focused on Degree 180 only. Then, regarding Colbeck Capital, the PE firm has Jewish founders, which aligns with Candace's claim that she worked for Jewish-owned firms before. Colbeck was involved in a lawsuit with MindGeek, owner of Hub, was launched in 2007 and acquired by MindGeek in 2010. The lawsuit alleged that from around 2010 onward, the platform knowingly hosted and promoted and monetized illegal content like CSAM and non-consensual videos. Colbeck wasn't directly involved in Hub's operations until 2012 to 2016, Candace Owens' employment period. Their role started around 2018 when they provided debt financing loans worth hundreds of millions to MindGeek. The lawsuit alleged that Colbeck knowingly funded a trafficking conspiracy despite awareness of the platform's history of illegal content from earlier years. Colbeck was added as a defendant in the amended complaints and the 2004 individual suits. In September 2025, a judge dismissed claims against Colbeck, ruling insufficient evidence of direct participation in the trafficking. So if Candace did work for them, it's likely that she keeps the name of the PE firm hidden because of this lawsuit. It wouldn't look good on her resume. Colbeck Capital was founded by two Jewish guys. One of them, Jason Beckman, is the same Jason who married Fabio Beresca and whose wedding was organized by Marcy Blum, listed in Candace's Degree 180 event sponsorship. 2016, the social autopsy saga begins. Again, the timing is extremely interesting. If you remember, Candace left her previous rental and Colbeck Capital at the end of 2015, and she first if she left the apartment at the end of 2015, she wouldn't have been in the apartment when she was disappeared then. She first publicly discussed social autopsy and promoted the project in early 2016. This was her way of making sure if any of her previous connections were to disclose information about her past, she'd have a place to trash them, ? I don't know. I find a bunch of other stuff way suspicious. Like, this whole thing is suspicious. This is weird, okay? First of all, if she did work for this firm, then she's tied to trafficking in her own standards, okay? Also, who are all these people? Also, she's working for Jewish people, and so her in conspiracy land, her background should be extremely suspect because, I mean, all she's done her entire life is work for Jews. And I thought that the Jews is the really big thing in the conspiracy against the whole world. So what's up with that? If somebody could do the exact same thing that Candace is doing to Erica, but like with actual facts, and it would be super conspiratorial in the conspiracy world. Anyway, I found this tweet very interesting. Very, very interesting. What do you guys think? Hey guys, this is me in the editing process. So I actually started looking more into the timeline around when Candace would have been working at Vogue, when she would have been renting that apartment, etc., etc. And so I thought I would add this into the video. I'm going to try to be as fast as I can because the video is already very long. I want to show you this flow chart. Okay, so we'll go over this really quick and then I will read to you guys my ChatGPT conversation around all these details. So we have verified, plausible, and speculative here. So high school, family in Stamford, Connecticut, University of Rhode Island, journalism major, early work, babysitting, and New York sublet. Now, I was wondering where she was living during this time that she was in New York working for Vogue, and it wasn't really for sure where she was living. Okay, then the claim here is speculative because there's no proof that she actually worked at a PE firm, which is what that tweet we were going over was saying, that she might have borrowed that story from her friend that she worked at Vogue with that then started Degree 180 with. Okay, so it's almost like maybe she borrowed that girl's story. Iona Alexandrescu, I'm not sure how to say that. Okay, so we don't know if she actually worked there, which is very odd because you would think if you worked at a private equity firm for 4 years, there would be evidence of that, but I don't know. But there's no public record. So it says possible borrowed narrative. Okay, so this is in 2011 to 2012, she was dating Jordan Osher, which is that millionaire matchmaker, Jewish man. Okay, then she left the private equity firm to start this Degree 180 marketing company with her friend Iona. Then it says New York Social Network, this flyer that listed all those people. That's plausible but unverified, but I don't think it actually ever happened. It could have been like I don't know, something that they were just brainstorming or something. I'm not for sure. Then there's these Candace Investors LLC holdings and property holding equity. So we are going to look at that, but I just want to show you this flow chart. Okay, now let me read to you. And the reason why I started questioning this because I wanted to know exactly when she was renting that apartment. So in 2016 to 2017, she was living in the luxury apartment in Stamford, Connecticut, around $3,500 a month. So this was after she left New York. Okay, so she's back in Stamford, Connecticut. This is right around the time she's starting the Degree 180 and the social autopsy thing. Okay, she stopped paying rent for several months, I think because they weren't making that much money off their marketing Degree 180. So I asked what she was doing for work during that time frame, and it says around 2016 to 2017, Candace wasn't the well-known conservative commentator people recognize today. She was actually in a transition phase trying to build a career in media and tech. So it says she was running a small marketing consulting business. Owens had a digital marketing consulting setup, sometimes described as working with startups and branding. It doesn't appear to have especially high profile or been stable at the time. This lines up with her being in the high rent apartment without a major public facing income stream. She was launching the social autopsy project in 2016. This is the big thing she was working on then. She created a site called Social Autopsy. The idea was to track exposed people online for harassment and bullying. It planned to collect names, social media accounts, etc. It got major backlash, especially over privacy doxing concerns. Now, the turning point, the backlash to social autopsy is widely seen as the moment that triggered her shift. That's what she says. What came next or shortly after, by 2017, 2018, she had gained attention with political commentary videos. Okay, so this is when she was hiding out for those several months, 8 months or whatever it was, and then came back as a conservative. So I asked what kind of work her social marketing company did, and it said based on how she described it and how similar roles function at that level, it's likely included social media management, brand positioning, online presence, basic digital marketing strategy, possibly helping small businesses set up websites or campaigns. Her marketing tech interests fed directly into the social autopsy project. That project required web development, coordination, user data structuring, and online behavior analysis. Financial reality at the time, this is where things get important. There's no clear record of a stable, high-income business. Her income during that period was likely inconsistent, tied to gigs or early-stage projects, which makes the high-cost Stamford apartment stand out more. Mismatch income versus lifestyle is part of why people question this period. Okay, so late 2016, early 2017, the turning point. After the social autopsy backlash, she begins publicly criticizing online outrage culture, framing herself as a target of mob behavior. This is the ideological pivot moment. 2017 re-emergence, starts producing political commentary content, gains traction online, messaging shifts toward anti-establishment themes and criticism of liberal activism. Phase 1, marketing, branding, content experiments. Phase 2, tech startup attempt. fails publicly. Phase 3 reframes that failure as I was targeted, exposed to mob behavior. Phase 4 builds a new identity around that experience. Okay, so I found that really interesting framed like that. There is no clearly documented, widely confirmed firm name, no consistent reporting naming a specific equity firm, no public employment records tying her to a major recognizable PE firm, no LinkedIn style employment history from that period that has been verified. What is generally understood is she worked for an administrative assistant capacity across multiple summaries in her early life. She held jobs described as administrative assistant, office support roles. These were in finance-related environments, possibly firms that interacted with private equity or investments. So Candace has stated she worked in or around private equity in her early career, but publicly available records do not identify a specific firm or indicate she held an investment role. Available descriptions suggest administrative or support level positions within finance-related environments rather than direct participation in private equity operations. Then I asked, what if she made it up? It's a fair question to ask when the paper trail is thin. There's no specific equity firm of that name or that's widely verified. So it breaks it down into versions. So version 1, broad, polished. I worked in finance. I worked in private equity. This is the most public facing version. Version B, slightly more grounded, references to office work, corporate environments. Sometimes she implies she was inside the system, observing how things work. Still vague, but less inflated. Version C, narrative framing. This is where it shifts from resume to story, positions herself as someone who saw elite systems up close, then became disillusioned. This version is less about job title and more about building credibility for later viewpoints. Some social media or blog claims about Candace working in private equity can be misattributions of Iona's work history or could reflect Candace using Iona's experience as context for her own stories. And it said nobody knows where she was living, but interns typically live in Manhattan or nearby boroughs. She was 22. No public record confirms a permanent address, so likely a temporary rental or sublet near Midtown. I asked if maybe she lived with the boyfriend. It didn't have any, there's no record of her living with the boyfriend. Then I explained more of the posts and I said, I'm getting an Anna Delvey sort of vibe here because she was trying to use names of people to boost her like social cred, right? And then it says, now I see the pattern you're picking up. This is very much a Delvey vibe where the narrative blends verifiable work, social network proximity, and aspirational storytelling to create an elevated career arc. Candace may have brought her in per Blackout, though speculative. Candace's employment at PE still unverified. 2014, social network ties continue. Marcy Bloom organizes socialite wedding. Marissa Van Borkos connected to Vogue PE World. Candace remains in network proximity. 2015, age 26, degree 180, co-founder, marketing agency, co-founded with Iona, involved in network events, flyers, and aspirational projects. Maintains connections to Shelley Drummond, Sarah Arison, Robin Van Borkhorst, Bokhorst. I don't know how to say that. Okay, so I just found all that really interesting. That's basically where that all ends. That investigative just little thing I did, because I really wanted to know exactly when that apartment was and where it tied into the story, because I was thinking it was when she was in that transitional period, and it was. And it wasn't in New York, it was in Stanford. And maybe nobody said it was in New York, but when I was reading that X post, somehow it got in my mind that it was New York. Sometimes I'll think things in my mind that aren't necessarily true, and then I realized later on I was thinking the wrong thing. So anyway, I wanted to add that in there. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Let's continue on. The video
seems to be trying to paint herself as calm and rational, but comes off sounding like bitchy girls I went to middle school with who were very good at controlling the narrative and painting themselves as the victim. I truly implore you to listen to both of these interviews and tell me if you agree it sounds like she's playing the victim. Candace asks, why didn't we hear the word dox until Zoe contacted us? Because you're stupid and uninformed and didn't do any research on this topic before you tried to launch your company. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like Zoe Quinn as a human, but this is the crux of Candace's proof that Zoe directed the subsequent harassment at her, because she didn't know what was a very well-known term at that point if you were concerned about online harassment. She also says, I don't give a shit about the gaming community. It doesn't affect my bottom line. Those are her exact words and really sounds like a true businesswoman to me. So in regard to the "you're going to ruin everything" line from Zoe, if it's genuine, because reminder, we're taking Candace's word for it on how the phone call went down, it's possible that she was referring to minors being doxxed and that Candace's project would screw up the general anti-harassment support Zoe was working on with her organization Crash Override. So I explained to Candace on the call that she had been a troll when she was younger, which she gave a talk about, I'll put the link below, where she explains that anonymity is important because it provided her freedom to be herself as a closeted queer kid, which, whatever you think of Zoe Quinn, that's true for many teenagers figuring out who they are and what they believe. Also, I think that allowing teenagers to submit their fellow classmates to this database, since submissions are totally anonymous, for everyone to look at, that's a damn recipe for enhanced bullying and humiliation, the exact opposite of what Candace says she's trying to do with this project. In any event, Candace has no firm evidence. She has emails between the two of them, which are in this super epic post she did about the whole incident, which I'll mention a little bit later, but the actual details of the call, we're taking her word for. She admits to not knowing anything about Gamergate or who Zoe Quinn was before this incident, and all she does is talk about how pompous Zoe Quinn is and makes other such ad hominem attacks. This is a pattern with Candace. My brain is filled from all the ad hominems I heard her spew in these interviews. So she's firm with this in this interview, saying that she wants to include minors in this database, though not all her employees agreed, and they've been discussing the issue amongst themselves. She also says you couldn't search by Twitter handle, only putting in names of people you actually know, so you couldn't look up some troll, find out where they live, and work, and ruin their life. However, she never addresses the issues of security and potential for abuse. For one, she never addresses how easy it is to make fake Twitter screenshots, which I saw mentioned in another video about Red Pill Black, link below. Also, as was discussed in some Black Eyes live stream with Andy Worski and others on October 26th, there was a thread online about the social autopsy site and the subsequent bot on Twitter back when this all happened, which I discovered a couple of days before that. I'll put the link below. So the people in this forum were pulling down her site and all the personal information from people that had been uploaded there. And this thread also has a bunch of screenshots of her tweeting from the official Twitter account for Social Autopsy, which was Social Coroner, because they had to move to that after the original Twitter handle got hijacked. It's protected now. The only thing you might see out there is this parody account that looks like Social Coroner, but it's got a lowercase I instead of an L, which they capitalized to fool people into thinking it's real, but it's a parody account. But the Kiwi Farms thread has screenshots from the real Twitter account when this is happening, and it's insane. Her reaction to this was insane. I will show you some of the best screenshots, but go look for yourself. It's insane. Another pretty important revelation in this video, I think, was that she claims that they have a big computer forensics company helping them.
So now we have the biggest technology computer forensics company that is going to help us with this database, which means now it's actually a threat. Now you really could have your troll names unmasked. You know, so like she did nothing but help us in the end.
Further, when talking about the Zoe thing, she shits on her, saying she's too busy to pay attention to things like Gamergate because, quote, I have real things going on in business. She also bitches that Zoe led with her resume when she emailed her, saying, you probably know me because I was patient zero of Gamergate, essentially. And then Randy Harper, wrote this Medium post criticizing Candace and Social Autopsy, and that she also leads with her resume in that post. And then Candace says,
she doesn't want me to hit her with mine because she has not accomplished nearly as much as I have accomplished, okay? Like, I don't think they understand how accomplished women that I work with are. I just don't think they do.
She also says they were getting constant emails until the instant she tweeted she was going on the record with the Ralph retort about what happened. Maybe true? No way to tell. She says they're trying to actually make an impact on something that affects people's lives in the most responsible way possible. And said this.
We're really transparent but we're not going to be responding to that are just repeating the lies that were spread by a small malicious group of people.
Yeah, that seems pretty consistent with how she's behaving now, despite this interview having happened a year and a half ago. So 10 days later, she's on the Ralph retort again. My favorite quote from this interview is also from the very beginning, when she says,
I'm a very honest person.
L-O-fucking-L. So in this interview, she discusses that Jessie Single wrote an article about her in New York Magazine that she dubbed a hit piece, but she never actually refutes anything Jessie Single said in the article during this interview. She just makes ad hominem attacks on him. She says he's not someone to look up to. She says this reflects badly on the Wasserstein family behind New York Magazine, and that it's sad to see him ruin this respected and revered family. She also says he's delusional and
at this point he's just unstable. He's not stable. He creates these block lists so that he can further delude himself into believing that he's a real person.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds like SJW tactics to me. Smearing other people, not responding to arguments and legitimate questions and concerns. All right.
Wait, did she say that he wasn't a real person? What? What does that mean? So he can fool himself into thinking he's a real person. Huh.
She said she was going to write a blog post about the whole incident on her Degree 180 website, which it looks like she did, but it's only on archive.org because she deleted it from the site. Link is below. As far as I know, it's the only post she deleted because the whole website is there with a decent amount of posts from her and other contributors. The post in question was deleted between September 3rd and September 22nd, 2016, according to the Wayback Machine. I'm not going to be able to really get into depth going over this article in this video because it would probably take me the length of an entire separate video to go over it, but I will definitely put the link in the description below for everyone to read. Everyone should read it. It's her whole story from start to finish about her Zoe Quinn conspiracy theory, about how Zoe Quinn sent army of trolls after her and to get her Kickstarter shut down. It's really insane. She even puts a photo of her with kids that she babysat for as proof that, she loves kids, and that this whole idea that minors are going to be doxxed was ridiculous because, she was working with anti-bullying campaigns, and her whole concern was for kids because the tools of the internet make bullying way worse than it was in the past. And she did all her due diligence, and Zoe Quinn is just this crazy person. People are welcome to disagree with me. Maybe they think Zoe Quinn was behind all this. I just find that very difficult to believe and very convenient to her the victim narrative that Candace wants to paint. She painted herself as a victim of this whole Zoe Quinn thing. Now she's painting herself as a victim because people are just trying to take down a Black conservative, which is crazy because everyone wants to see more Black people wake up, at least to the craziness of the mainstream media and how they lie. Maybe not everyone wants to see them become conservative because everyone's conservative, but the people in this community, Dave Cullen is a conservative, and he would be happy to see a Black conservative. But A, an actual conservative, and B, doesn't matter if you're conservative. You lied. You can't be trusted. And this whole community, again, is built on trust. And this article really makes me want to know, how does she feel about cyberbullying now? Is she still doing charity work for children, for anti-bullying? How does she feel about bullying? How does she feel about free speech, hate speech, all of those things? Her TEDx talk, which happened a couple months after the Zoe Quinn incident, where she supposedly woke up conservative, was about quote unquote digital activism and how people posting mean things on the internet was this problem. Posting a 1-star review on Yelp because the waitress was, a bitch or whatever, or didn't serve them fast enough. She wrote this on April 18th. The Kickstarter was pulled down on April 14th. So which was the actual day when she, woke up conservative? She says that she doesn't believe in online anonymity. She says because if we were all publicly identifiable, it would be better because you wouldn't say terrible things to people. That ignores pretty obvious reasons that people would want to be anonymous, like even more innocent things like wanting to be anonymous on Twitter so you can share anti-SJW memes without getting fired or losing friends. That one's pretty close to my heart. She also says in this interview, quote,
in the session, I have so many other things I'm working on. Right. Social autopsy is still happening. And I have 2 huge announcements to make that you guys aren't even aware of. Okay. So I didn't want to become like a full-time blogger about this. But with that said, if anybody takes a swing at me and tries to dock my character and my reputation, I am not ever going to take that sitting down.
That also seems pretty consistent with her response to everyone questioning her right now. She then goes on to address the Medium post by Randy Harper, saying that it wasn't well written, it wasn't smart, it was trashy, and again with the ad hominem attack, says she worries about Randy because she's genuinely messed up and has real issues to the point that it's really not funny. She also said to stay tuned because she and her team are working on a cyberbullying documentary. She does mention in this interview that Breitbart covered her fairly, but nowhere in either of these interviews with the Ralph Retort does she mention now having become a conservative or leaving the left or any of that. The views she expressed seem pretty far from conservatism. That brings us to the end of part 1 of my discussion of the whole red pill black controversy. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so that was part 1. Very, very suspicious. That's weird. Why is Candace Owens acting so weird? Why is she getting so upset when people ask her questions? They're just asking questions, right, Candace? Why are you getting so upset? Freaking out. Writing articles. That's weird. They must have been over the target, right? Okay, so I actually have the article that she mentioned that Candace Owens crashed out in. So let's go read that, shall we? Journalgate. How the New York Magazine allowed Jesse Segal to scam Candace Owens into an interview by Candace Owens. I love journalism. I am, if you haven't gathered by now, a writer, and so I possess a special relationship with the craft and an implicit reverence for all those who pursue it professionally. That is why I choose not to believe any of the tweets directed at me over the last week insinuating that there was an organized press effort to protect the reputations of Zoe Quinn and Randy Harper. Such a suggestion sounded to me like the echoing of a dramatized conspiracy theory, which my fact-driven character is not exactly amenable to. Y'all, seriously, that line is nuts. Oh my gosh. So when the New York Magazine reporter Jesse Singal contacted me via Twitter, I was excited to work with him. He was interested in my back-to-back tweets aimed at Randy Lee Harper and Zoe Quinn, which was a direct response to the former admitting they were behind the takedown of my company's Kickstarter. No, seriously, they actually took credit for it. Of course, I hadn't researched Jesse Singal or discovered any of the articles accusing him of inappropriate social media behavior, and I was completely unaware of his personal ties to these two women regarding whom my tweets were aimed at. Either I just wasn't paranoid enough or intelligent enough to consider researching him. You decide. The truth is that I made the mistake of relying upon the integrity of a publication over the reputation of one of its writers, and because of the level of viciousness I was made to endure due to this error, I feel it is important to instead present the electronic proof of his deceptions while leaving little room for debate regarding his character. Because retrospectively, I am understanding that Jesse Singal contacted me under a guise of a journalist in an effort to stop me from publishing my story of how Zoe and Randy attacked my campaign. Here is Jesse's initial correspondence to me. Hey, what's up? I saw your message. How are you dealing with the online jerks? Oh, it's fine. I'm no longer in a position where this sort of thing affects me. The reason behind it is way more compelling, frightening. What is it? I saw you were tweeting about it, and I'm very curious. I am writing an article that will explain everything. Essentially, I put up a Kickstarter campaign for my company, and all of a sudden we were warned, and then inundated with an attack by the Gamergate community, or so I thought. Turns out Zoe Quinn and Randy Harper were behind it, and I couldn't figure out why they wanted to take down a company that didn't even exist yet. Holy crap, so why do you think it is? Dude, some random person reaches out to you and just says, hey, and you just start telling them everything. Like, this is exactly what a journalist would do, is get people talking. Like, holy crap, why do you think it is? So let me make a suggestion. Let me tell your story on Monday instead. Way more people will see it, and it could double as a chance for you to tell our million-plus readers about the service and answer the questions that are popping up on Twitter. Who are you with? New York Magazine. I've done some stuff on online harassment before. This was one of our top stories the month it ran. You will note that Jesse was trying to stall my own article detailing how these girls harassed me. His promise to me was that if I didn't write it, he would draw 1 million+ readers to my cause. It was an irresistible offer, and yet I still had my drawbacks. And then he pretended to sympathize and understand my reasons as to why. Honestly, this is just so sick, it's hard to hold off. Do you understand the implication? It's such a slippery slope. .org's creating the issues they collect dollars off of. I'm literally sickened, and I know it's real. It's almost like a cyber collusion. It sounds really insane, which is why I want to tell it. Right as in you generate the harassment, then you make money off pretending to protect people from. Yes, it's so sick, so sick. I thought he was being genuine because the New York Magazine allowing a writer to scam an individual into anything seemed unfathomable. But the truth is that Jesse was developing tactics to stall my article while simultaneously gathering as much evidence in terms of what information would propel my allegations against Zoe Quinn and Randy Lee Harper. I was, okay, fine. not intelligent enough to see through the guys immediately, and I agreed to hold off on the story. He and I scheduled a phone call for the next day, April 17th, 2016. Prior to our phone call, we continued to communicate rapidly via Twitter. Okay, so this is when he learned she didn't have any information for the stuff she was claiming, which is what he wrote about in his article. Prior to our phone call, we continued to communicate rapidly via Twitter. Jesse asked me to send him any evidence that I had beforehand of the harassment I received. You will see that I immediately confided to him that I suspected the issues was much deeper than it even appeared to be. And yes, somewhat ironically, that I suspected journalists may have been involved in the distortion of facts pertaining to these two women. I would want it pushed. This is honestly sickening, and I am telling you, it runs deep. There are journalists involved as well. Damn, yeah, well, I'm excited to hear more. Once you've decided for sure you want to go with New York Mag for this, just give me the word and we'll set up a combo ASAP. If there's an preliminary evidence you want to email me beforehand, you have my word I won't publish any of it until either we run my story or you decide to go another route. The story is out in some other form. You have that in writing from me. I'm just curious to see what you've got. I was naive. I obliged and emailed him some of the screen grabs I had and gave him permission to publish them because I thought he was writing an expose of the harassment I received. Again, I was unintelligent, but entirely unprepared. Well, I'm not going to read this whole extremely long article, but I will leave it linked below. Okay, so that was weird. That was really weird. I think we're going to wrap this up because it's probably really long already, and hopefully it won't have to be broken up into two this one episode. But before I do, I want to show you one last extremely short clip. And sorry that we didn't get to Undone, okay? But there wasn't a good point to bring it in because part 3 of Undone starts with Candace Owens's harassment campaign against the woman writing it. So it seems like it's, not a good place for it right here, but we will be getting back to that article soon. But let me leave you guys with something before we go to closing.
The rule number 1 on the internet, if you want to survive, is to never tell the truth.
Be a liar.
If you want to survive on the internet, you can never tell the truth. Candace Owens. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. This is part 3. Part 4 will be out next Friday. I appreciate everyone for being here. We're just going to continue this journey and see where it takes us, right? We're just asking questions. We're just poking around, right? Not a big deal. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. Thank you everyone who's new. Please like and comment and subscribe. I would really, really appreciate that. It would mean the world to me. And I'll see you next time on The Eclectic Journalist.